Welcome back. Welcome to our afternoon session on Friday, June 12th, the final session of the ICELW conference. I'm David Goralnik. It's great to be back with you. And we have a full session this afternoon once again, lots of talks and interviews, and culminating in the announcement of the International E-Learning Awards Business Division winners. So we're looking forward to that. And we're going to start right off. So we're going to start right off with Fernando Salvetti, our first speaker. So we're going to turn it over to Fernando, who we're excited to hear from about crisis management.
Hello again. Hi. Okay. It's time to fly, not only to stay in a surgical theater, even if right now we are about to mix the two, flying and saving life. And from the very beginning, I'm proposing you such a mixed environment where we are mixing two different approaches: healthcare simulation, and avionics and aviation simulation. The military, because we are working in the aviation mainly with the military, the Italian Air Force, the Emirati Air Force, and some other military aviations. And healthcare, we are working mainly in between Italy, Switzerland, and the United States. For this presentation, my colleagues that were engaged in order to develop those experiences are Roxanne Garner, Rebecca Meinhardt, Cristiano Galli, and Barbara Bertani. Roxanne and Rebecca are from Boston. They have a center for medical simulation. Cristiano was from the Italian Air Force, a general. Now he's a civil instructor, teaching leadership to the officers, Air Force officers, from the Arab Emirates Air Force. So now he's based in Abu Dhabi. And Barbara is my business partner in between Turin, Italy, Lugano, Switzerland, and Houston, Texas. As I was saying, both healthcare and aviation are sharing, and since a number of decades, at least 3 decades, are sharing the simulation environment as an effective way to teach both technical and behavioral skills. Sometimes outputs are also in terms of cognitive and metacognitive skills that are really honed starting from a simulation environment. So there is a cockpit and there is a surgical theater, because are the two iconic places where CRM, crisis resource management, or also crew resource management are performed. The junction in between crisis and crew is the typical situation during which simulation may reach the best outputs, because there is a team, so a crew, both in the military or also in the civil aviation, as well as within a surgical theater. The team has to perform as a crew and has to reach results, saving lives. They own lives, usually within aviation, and patients' lives within healthcare. Aviation means mainly the risk related to crashes, mortal crashes. Healthcare means risks. Many times, again, the death is behind the corner, related to the patient's lives. So we are talking about two very challenging simulation scenarios. Let's start with aviation, just to share some more info. Info directly provided by General Cristiano Galli, a colleague of mine who is teaching the aircraft officers. And I can say and share with you that in modern aviation, for skill training, so for the so-called soft and cognitive skills, soft or behavioral and cognitive, sometimes also metacognitive skills, a simulation setting is very useful, mainly because situational awareness, problem solving in a very quickly evolving situation are expected to be honed directly within the simulation setting. It's like a cockpit. Sometimes the simulation setting is the cockpit. And the cockpit is both for growing technical skills and situational awareness, leadership, time management, managing emotions under pressure. So there are different highly realistic cockpits in order to foster both technical and behavioral, cognitive and metacognitive skills. This is another example of a cockpit. Is less realistic. The only really highly realistic element is this, is augmented reality, overlaying of information over the front window of a cockpit. Those are pretty realistic comments, but for sure this is a highly realistic cockpit. Sometimes we do not need the cockpit. Sometimes we only need, in order to perform at their best as pilots, soft cognitive and metacognitive skills, behavioral cognitive and metacognitive, to perform as they were within an escape room. Already today I heard Gita from Israel talking about escape rooms. I talked 2 days ago again about escape rooms. Escaping a room lacking time is the essence of those type of simulations, where people are provided with contradictory info, because an information overload usually is highly expected, and the people are in need to solve problems in a way that in a simulation setting is better than everywhere outside the same room. Because within a simulation setting, they may interact with real or virtualized commands, tools, and so on. We are expected to measure the outputs, because this is a totally new project, starting from September. We were expected to start last year. We started a little bit, then coronavirus stopped all the tests we were performing, both in Milan Polytechnic School and in Rome Marconi University. So from September this year, we will start again trying to track and measure the behavioral outputs. Basically, high fidelity cockpits and low fidelity cockpits. High fidelity for mainly technical operations, low fidelity cockpits mainly for behavioral, cognitive and metacognitive skills to hone. And next year, I hope, next June in New York, we will be able to share the first output. Those are the outputs from the other field, healthcare. Very different fields. In this case, we are within the Mass General Hospital in Boston. We are talking about civil personnel, In the first case, we are talking about the military. So very different industries, very similar conditions and situations, saving lives, lacking time, under a huge pressure. So very stressful situation. In this case, a checklist called Name, Claim, Aim is a checklist providing the basic elements in order to face a situation in a surgical theater or even in other different medical theaters. Is not so far from similar checklists that are usually employed within the aviation industry. So, a few words in order to recall is the reason why they are also called as mnemonics. What you have to perform under very, very difficult circumstances and in very highly stressful situations. In this case, you can take a quick look at what the surgeons, or generally speaking, medical doctors and nurses are expected to do and perform. First of all, nominating an event manager. Like in aviation, you have two pilots usually. One is overseeing operations, the other is really making the pilot. Same in healthcare. You have to have an event manager overseeing operations. Usually the event manager is not directly piloting, let's say, has mainly to oversee. And then additional roles, rules, suggestions are different technical fields, but the structure, cognitively speaking, is pretty the same. This is the way, within Mass General, the same checklist is differently visualized. Is the same name, claim, aim, but is a different knowledge visualization. This is a simulation room, not for pilots, but for medical doctors. In this case, they are not surgeons, they are medical doctors facing an outdoor situation, and there is the same checklist over a wall. The setting in this case is something like this. There is a control room monitorized a lot in order to control what is happening in the simulation room. And the aerial system works projecting over the walls a number of virtual objects. In this case, we have a 360 degree rotating heart. We have another beating heart here. We have medical imagery about how the heart is working. We have a patient simulator here. Two technicians from the control room that may modify the info provided over the walls, as well as they from the control room may modify the performance of the patient simulator. So the heart conditions and so on. Same within aviation. Flight simulator, as you can easily figure out, is a place where unexpectedly something changes. So you have to face unexpected conditions in a few seconds, and you are put in danger in a few seconds. If you are a pilot or a co-pilot, you are put in danger yourself as a person, as a professional. If you are a medical doctor or nurse, your patient is put in danger, also of life. Both the situations are very similar. Crew resource management or crisis resource management are converging in order to suggest to hone both technical and behavioral, cognitive, metacognitive skills, because professionals have to perform very sophisticated, very complicated activities, and they are in need to face many times something really challenging in order to be prepared for the real life. Usually in aviation, 1 hour within a flight simulator, a high fidelity flight simulator, is equal to 1 hour real flying time. So the equation is 1 to 1 in aviation. Not the same in healthcare, even if there are a lot of credits granted if people are attending an healthcare simulation room, and usually they pay a reduced fee for their professional insurance. Because the simulation, also in healthcare, is recognized as a very effective strategy or training approach in order to hone competencies that have to be performed in the real world. So the bridge in between the simulation room and the real world is really strong. For healthcare, we already performed some tests and checks on a pretty high number of people. The latest are about 62 people that attended in 6 different cohorts interprofessional medical education. And our results are mainly about speed and ease of learning, engagement and enjoyment during learning, effective understanding about technical operations, cognitive retention, and confidence and readiness in applying once back at work. And we can say that we are reaching high percentages in terms of many increased speed and ease of learning, as well as engagement. So it's not only enjoyment, it's mainly speed of learning and increased ability to perform. We are about to start other experiments in order to perform better measurement on a larger number of attendees, because better being not sure about the results, first of all because we are in conflict of interest, because we are the guys that are instructionally designing the solution, and because number of people expected to perform under experimental conditions are necessary in order to be sure about saying that we are really reaching good results. But for the moment, we may say that the path we are following with Ariel seems to be very promising, and the first measurement seems to be very good. Thank you so much for attending again, and happily, many for you, is the last time I'm talking. 4 times in 3 days are really too much. Sorry, and sorry also for my Italian English, but it's the only English I'm able to talk. And I'm available if there are any questions.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. It's always good to have you talk. Thanks for spending so much time this week. So there's questions. If we have questions in the chat, please go ahead and type them. Also, one thing I noticed on one of your last slides is you mentioned that there were some people who were uncomfortable with the idea of the room. It was overwhelming. They were getting used to it. What do you think that's going to change over time as people just sort of live in a different world, or are there things that you want to do to try to address those cases?
Frankly speaking, I do not know. The answer is I do not know.
Okay.
No.
It's too hard to tell.
Yes, yes. And there are a lot of conditions, situations, factors that I will need to be better understood in order to be able to provide a real answer.
Okay. Right. I would say don't put a room in an actual airplane just yet. I think that's probably too much for people. I think that's where the line would be drawn. I think that would makes me dizzy just thinking about it. Um, and then, so in terms of everything else, so let's talk a little bit about well, have you mentioned what do you think is next? So you've done these tests, that you've rolled out a lot of things with eRail already. What do you see as kind of the next steps to getting some of this, an even more widespread use than you're already seeing?
Next step should be effective holograms out of the glasses. Sometimes we merge HoloLens or the old Movirio, producing holograms over the lenses. A few times we use 18,000 lumens projectors. Very powerful, but very difficult to manage in a standard simulation setting in order to produce holograms 3D and visible without wearing any head-mounted display. So without glasses, without special glasses. Merging real holograms in a simulation setting, in my opinion, is one of the next expected pretty regular setting, even if right now we are in need to reduce the number of lumens. Because from a technical side, the projectors that are producing holograms today are not really fitting well with the average measurement of the places where we can install a simulation lab. Anyway, holograms, human-sized holograms, real-time broadcasting holograms, dense enough to perceive the depth of the hologram without the special glasses are, in my opinion, next step pretty realistic to reach in a few months or a year and a half, maybe, I hope, because projectors are doing better and better from the technical side. And this is one. The other, in my expectation, is mixed reality. A real mixed or hybrid reality. I know sometimes theoretically we have to distinguish in between mixed and hybrid. I'm trying to merge mixed and hybrid. And in my opinion, mixed or hybrid reality with actors performing from a wall, a projector wall, other actors and learning facilitators performing in the real place, holograms, robots, cobots, and sensorized objects are what we are expecting because we are part of the 4.0 technological revolution, and because in Japan the government is putting a lot of money over the table in order to develop the so-called Society 5.0. So collaboration in between human and machines, in my opinion, will be another frontier, easy to reach also for educators and trainers in general.
Yeah, no, that's great. There's so much to be done. That's coming fairly soon. Too. So we have a question from Beth Barber, which is, have you seen the Cave immersion learning from Boston, which she said uses projectors and Unity 3D and game controllers? Is something you've run across?
The question is if Iriale is a cave.
I think it's there's something called Cave. She's mentioned Cave immersive learning, Cave technologies.
Cave was the benchmark we started from in order to develop Iriale. Cave is pretty an old concept because was designed originally in between Chicago and Paris during the 80s. Cave means using special glasses in order to perceive three-dimensionally the virtual objects. We don't within IRIAL. Cave means using usually joysticks. 80% of the existing caves are in need to have learners manipulating virtual objects by and via joysticks. We do not. And caves are mainly real projected. So caves are mainly based on big screens. Only a few new caves are working with a front projection system. But in my experience, they are not worthy the huge amount of money that you have to spend. A small cave costs 300,000 US dollars till 1 million. Real cost 10, 12 times less. In my opinion, is too much money for an artificial experience. Too much joystick, glasses, and so on. But for sure, yes, Real belongs to the cave family, but developed thanks to the ultra short throw projectors.
Okay. Wow, great. And yeah, there's so much that can be done with it, and I think your goals of a very natural user experience are sort of at the heart of a lot of things that make the technology work. And Donna mentioned she sees your system in hospitals, schools, and government buildings for training, and certainly you've been already in the medical area quite a bit. So there's a lot there.
We are in medical area, we are in STEAM education. Sometimes we try to expand the STEAM to STEM, so also the arts, let's say. We are sometimes within museums, for sure within selected schools. There is a lot of room in order to develop. It's a question related to pricing, but it's mainly a cultural issue. Lot of teachers, trainers, instructors, in my opinion, have to slightly change their own mindset. And they have to accept that we can easily meet people within hybrid environments, performing a lot of things, old or new, in different ways. Keeping also the traditional face-to-face lessons or the more innovative flipped classrooms, but there is a room really for innovation.
Great. All right, one last question, just if we can have a quick answer before we go from Christina. In your view, will the learners of the future need more time to recover from learning? So you kind of, is there sort of do you change the timing of things? Now you go from class to class, whether that's good or not, but here you're going through such a deep, immersive, emotional experience. What's your sense of recovery time, or is it again too hard to know and needs further study, which I would totally understand.
In my opinion, it's time to merge emotions with rationality. It's time to allow regular and standard teachers, instructors, trainers to deliver feedback about both the emotional and human side, as well as the cognitive and the knowledge side of the performance, as they are already very used to handle and to perform, using technology. There are ways in order to recognize emotions. It's culturally very challenging. It's not easy at all. Also technologically, it's very difficult. But there are ways and means in order to merge this area with the most common areas that we are used to deal with within traditional education.
All right, okay, I'd love to talk more. I've got more questions coming in, but we are out of time for now. We have Fernando's email up. I think if there are additional questions and maybe people to partner with and all kinds of things. Great to see you as always. Look forward to seeing you in person again next year, and I'm sure we'll be in touch between now and then.
For sure. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thanks again. All right, great talking to you. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Fernando. So coming up next, everything comes fast and furious on a Friday. We have Hassan Smajic from the University of Technology, Arts and Sciences in Cologne, Germany, talking about digital twins for online training of automation techniques. So we're going to move on to Hassan's intro, and then I'll turn it over to him. Right, so we should get things turned over. And I believe Hassan is showing his computer screen, so we're just waiting for that to get up and running. So just take another second. We'll be back with Hassan in just a minute. So yeah, so Fernando's technology is certainly interesting. A lot of applications in a classroom setting. Don, I totally agree with yes, with system learning, with job aids. It's a really nice mix of, it's a simulation system, I think, kind of at its heart, at least the way I view it. But using it for performance support is just as good. I really like the checklist approach and the idea of doing things in a voice activated way. There's just so much we can do. So we are excited about that, and it's always just great to have Fernando here with us again. Right. Just waiting for us, and I think there we are. All right, and I'm ready to turn it over. I'm off the air. It's all yours. Great to talk to you.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can't see you. We can hear your voice and see your slides, which is fine. We don't see you on camera. You're welcome to be on camera if you would prefer.
Yes, I get my camera free, but I cannot see my voice. Okay.
Yeah, we have the voice in the slides. Okay. Don't see the camera. So
camera. Okay, unfortunately, with camera is not going to work. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh. Okay. Hello and good afternoon from Cologne in Germany. Just welcome from Fernando Italian English to German English. David, many thanks for introducing me. You are doing really great job in those 3 days. But also special thanks to Miranda for a great support during the last time. For me, it's the first time being by ICELW, and I really enjoyed it. On this afternoon, I'd like to present some activities and the results of a new education approach. It covers many of terms I already heard in this conference, terms like Industry 4.0, learning by doing, digital twins, and so on. Wait, something is always okay. First, I'm going to give you some boring background information why automation is so important is today as training for engineers, and where can we find and use automation. The main part of the presentation I describe Industry 4.0 architecture for remote education, especially useful for COVID-19 time, and a developed digital twin for students' exercises. Lastly, I will finish with a view to future research efforts and the area of higher education before I end this with a video demonstration. So, why is automation so important today? When we started to build the large plants here on the left side of this slide, in the beginning, the cost of mechanical parts were over 90%. And the cost for electrical parts, automation parts, was less than 10%. But due to declining of prices in semiconductors and processor technology, more and more electrical parts started to be integrated into industrial machines and plants. So when we would build the same plant today, the situation is quite opposite. The biggest are automation costs today, more than 60%. And they are divided to software license, cost for hardware devices, and cost for engineering. Engineering means people and people also like our students, which we teach. So that I can say that we set some goals, some objectives like this: creation of a concept for distributed control systems. We started to develop some new software tools for monitoring of students' progress during the teaching time. But let's see now how the automation is integrated in a program of a common mechanical engineering study. On the right side, we have usually basic modules like mathematics, physics, informatics, logistics. And on the left side are usually the modules like design, materials, mechanics, all parts which can have to be manufacturing, measurement and control. And if we focus a little bit more on those modules, they all deal with mechanical parts, and automation as discipline is doing just with electrical and electronical parts. When the students have graduated, they get work in different industry, starting a specialist from as a specialist for compact machines, complex machines, large plants, infrastructure, and in some of other application like woodworking machines, baker machines, car washing machines, and so on. But it's very important to educate them. It's very important to educate the students in those technologies shown here. And it's very important to prepare them also for the jobs that don't exist yet, but will be created in the nearly future in several segments. From the existing concepts, the technologies here in the middle of the slide, we have development of working stations for training, which contains almost 90% of all automation used technologies on the market. But let's start now. Just let's take a look on how what education concepts are recently used on universities. The currently most widespread model for knowledge transfer, also on European universities, is in some cases still by passive lectures, where due to theoretical inputs, knowledge transfer happen due informations. However, such knowledge transfer through theoretical input always suffer from a very low recall rate, which is after 3 months about 10%. This survey is a study from the company IBM. And applied-oriented teaching with the support of practical exercises, simulation, group works, can improve this recall rate until 32%. But we have still students, but the number of dropouts is still too high. One of the main reasons for the dropouts after this approach is a high level of abstraction in the transfer from knowledge, especially in mechatronics modules. But recently better results can be achieved when we teach, like also several times during this conference mentioned, by training, learning by doing on real machines. Also, if we make the training of the students on real machine, real or virtual environment, and according to this survey, the recall rate can be exceeded to 65% after 3 months, and which can also significantly lead to better learning outcomes of the students' results. For this purpose, we developed a working station that be a working station which can active experience and can make the system learning by doing. Such an approach can make the level of abstraction of complex programming tasks much more comprehensible, even when the students work in team. I'm not going to explain all technologies deeply in detail on this point, but just to mention, we choose the components for data acquisition, sensor actuators, push buttons, monitoring and control of machine and plants with human-machine interface, data processing with a PLC, drives and motion with industrial communication like field buses and Ethernet, industrial Ethernet. A very important part of education is involved with energy efficiency, where the students can measure consumption of energy resources on devices, and they can analyze and find the best recommendation how to save energy. The main objective of this is to sensibilize the students for efficiently behavior with electrical energy. Also, in order to increase motivation the students for sometimes boring topics, we developed also some exercises and trainings with smartphones and tablets, so that the students can talk with the machines and plan with a machine and plan or process with the smartphone or tablet. For this issue, we developed an app, and the students can make the monitoring of the process or get emails or any text messages. And also safety and security is also quite important in this matter. At the present time, due COVID-19 pandemic, many lectures have to migrate to internet teaching. In most cases, e-learning on digital tools are used to continue online courses like in Zoom, WebEx, Adobe Connect, just to replace classroom teaching. But the most current approaches are limited just to lecture or theoretical exercises. At the moment, there are hardly no universities that can offer really appropriate practical exercises with high practical relevance. This slide explains how the practical exercise can be carried out remotely via internet. The students access to the to the working station from anywhere, from any time, over a proxy server. And here the first step is to check the username and password, and then they are going to be allocated to appropriate stations. And they can work from at home and make the programming of the units, make download of the units, and to control they work. So on each station, working station, also like I saw here one working station, and we built 20 of those working stations, 20 in one room, and of each working station, usually in present work 2 people, but if we work online, one student for the same time. And for each working station, we provided 10 IP global addresses. And so whole laboratory has 200 global IP addresses. Student access to these stations can perform their tasks, and tasks are to programming PLC, drives, HMI, to make download, and just to check their results. They are very different skills and very different before they came to us. We talk here about diversity. Some students work very fast, are good skilled, but some and understand well and finish their task earlier. But some students need more time to finish it. So in order to optimize availability, we developed also automatically allocation of units. If the student N is working at home and he is finished with his programming, then he connect to a server, and on a server he is visible if a station is free or already connected or busy. So on this way he can choose the first free station, he can test his programs and validate the programs, and if he's finished, he can leave this station and make this station free for the next student. So on this way we can work with end users, and end users have access to 20 working stations. So on this way we increase availability of this station. This is an overview. This is just example from a student at home. What is doing the student from at home? On the left side is so it's a software environment, which in this software environment the student must programming devices. Devices are from industry machines here, and those small windows are small programs in C language or graphic programming. And if student is finished with his programming of this task, he make the access to these devices and can make download of his whole project. Another side, also the task of students are also to develop so screens for a human machine interface, screens like you have on your smartphone. And the students develop those screens, and in our runtimer, he can also check the correctness of his programming. He can now start this motor, or can start this motor, or can start the changing of light on this unit. He can also push out here pneumatic piston, and with these human human machine interface and runtimer, he's able to check his results of the program. Okay, until now it's everything. All the first 9 slides are very related to Internet of Things in education. But the next slide is really something what has to do with this paper for this conference. We also have achieved the highest level of digitalization education. For this purpose, we designed a digital twin of a working station, a digital twin, and we want to be able that the students are able. We want to have, as students are able to check their programs also on virtual models. It would make a big advantages. In this case, several such CAD models can be stored on a server, and the student make just access to virtual model, and some university must not do so big investment like this here. How it works, I'm going to show it in a video in following on this presentation. But just let me say what technology are used in order to develop this. On the right side, it's a CAD model from Siemens NX. It's a CAD model, and with this tool, we developed a simulation model which can communicate via OPC server, via OPC URI interface, and in video, what I'm going to show later is we work like hardware in the loop. Hardware in the loop means the PLC is hardware, but equipment is virtually. There is also possible to work like software in the loop. In this case, it would be also simulated PLC, which can simulate this CAD model. In this case, we will talk about software in the loop as also, of course, possible. As additionally feature, just to be in and according to the state of the art, we implemented this developed virtual model. We implement this digital twin or CAD model also to Oculus Quest virtual reality glasses. Previous we implement this CAD model and read a small Unity, also this game as software Unity, a small application in order to the student can also give commands to these units also over VR glasses. Okay, I conclude because before I start with the videos. The first experience we made is the students, it lead to a high acceptance by students, the fun by, so those technical issues is very high, very good results by examination, good skilled students also for design of wall automation solutions. The situation of laboratory is on this picture below. And those are 20 stations which are now remotely accessible and for which we have also digital twins. Advantage of this concept is that we can also validate research projects and in these Internet of Things capabilities, we can share these resources with other universities. In Europe, we have also experience with sharing with university in Berlin, with a university in Turkey, with a university in Kenya. And also, there is also some need for research, further research. We are working also on scheduling tools, booking services, And a big issue is to develop artificial intelligence programs which can monitoring the progress of the student during a long term, about 2-3 months. I would ask David, can you put this video now, or?
Room team is taking care of it, and they'll play it. They'll play it right now.
Okay, fine. You can see on this video now. On the right side is this digital twin of one real station. The student is just put this piston out, and the second piston here, and the student are going now to put some commands for this red light here. What I want to say, we have a real model on the left side, and we have a virtual model. On real model and virtual model is controlled by this PLC hardware in the loop. So it's not easy thing, because we are now coming to this CD model from a C program. This C program is quite complicated. Also, that means if we work in this room, 2 students are standing here and can programming this real working station. And you can see now that also virtual model is everything doing what also a real model is doing. So big advantage is to say, okay, we have a good enough of those models, we can forget all equipment and save the money, and in the future to work really digitally. That is this is our part to increase some digitalization concept in education. So okay, when this movie is just okay. Yeah, the students get in previous times some exercises, and they solve those exercises and put it in the PLC, and they can see our results. Everything is moving, everything is changing, and a big advantage is that they are learning by doing. They feel what is standing in the code of program, and they are, yeah. Okay, well, I think you can stop now the program. It's there is also a second video, but I don't know if we have enough time. With virtual reality glasses, and with virtual reality glasses, the student is able to now to change these commands of this light, and now he's going to start this motor below here, and the motor is going to rotate, and then he's going to put some other commands on this pneumatical piston or on this motion unit. So in on this virtual reality working station can work further. Okay.
Okay, seemed like a good, I think we were just about to stop. So thanks so much, Hassan, for your presentation, and the videos were really, really interesting to watch, and we enjoyed that, and especially the virtual reality and the learning by doing and all the concepts that we've been talking about for 3 days. Those are great examples. Thanks for sharing those with us, and we hope to see you again at a future conference. Up next, we have an interview that I did with Tim Brock. Tim and I sat down, Tim, our invited speaker, talked about ROI, and Tim and I sat down and talked a little bit more in detail about project processes and working with clients and some more about ROI. So we're going to play that for you. We'll be back live in 15 minutes with our next presenter. I'm David Garalick from the ICELW conference and Kaleidoscope Learning, and I'm here today with Tim Brock from the ROI Institute. Tim's one of our invited speakers at ICELW 2020, and we're very much looking forward to Tim's talk, which will cover ROI, and it's one of the things we're going to talk about today. So Tim, it's a pleasure to have you here. I'd like to start off maybe if you could talk a little bit about ROI, return on investment, but can you talk a little bit more about what that really means, and particularly in the context of learning and development and learning design?
Certainly. Well, ROI stands for return on investment, and it's a term that we've known for many, many years, but we've never really used it. I think one example could be is if you have children and you give them an allowance, you kind of expect something in return for that allowance, like doing their chores or something like that. So return on investment is simply when someone gives you something, you're looking to get something of value in return. And the same goes to what we do in the learning arena, particularly when we're dealing with any type of learning, whatever medium we had to be using. People give us money to produce some type of a result. And they would like to know that that result that they're getting in return is something of value in return for the investment that they're giving you. So what we've discovered around the globe is more and more organizations are expecting at the executive level to see what kind of value and monetary value that they're getting in return for the investments that they're making in learning and development programs to be able to justify continuing that funding versus looking for other places where they might get greater value out of it. So it's an important term that we in this field need to understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And can you tell me a little bit about when you're talking about value, you mentioned monetary value. Does it always have to be direct monetary value, and does it always have to be monetary value?
No, sometimes an intangible benefit can outweigh the monetary value of something. It's just doing the right thing. For years ago, remember that we had that Tylenol scare in Chicago where, Johnson & Johnson decided to pull all of the Tylenol capsules off the shelves around the globe at great cost to them. But the most important thing to them at the time was their reputation. They said that, we will not give our customers, anything that will harm them. So they looked at the intangible of their reputation, their image, their brand as more important than the tangible money that they lost. So a lot of times, companies have to weigh those things. So if you have an intangible benefit and the leadership says, no, we're willing to take a loss in this. We know that we're not making money on it. We'll make it up elsewhere, but this is too important. So again, this is one of those decisions that the executives make, but they have to have the data, the monetary value and the tangibles so that they're able to make those informed decisions.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, there are also then within the monetary world, there are also indirect financial costs. So you might save X amount from doing something, but if you look down the line, you'll be able to at least project out some other benefit that's even a financial one that's not immediate. Is that something else that you take into account?
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that we can do is forecast an ROI as we look down the future. A lot of times executives, when they're making decisions of whether they should invest in something, is, well, what's the ROI forecast to be? What can we anticipate based on estimates that would give us an indication that this could be a proper investment? Now, anytime we do forecasts and estimates, we typically always come in high. We go in there understanding that we say, if we only make 50% of this ROI or 10% of it, it's still positive. So it gives them a little bit more of a warm fuzzy that, yeah, we're heading down the right path, and they have data to do that.
So when you do within the world of learning and learning development, so scoping within that world, when you're looking at projecting ROI for a company, what are the key factors you need to take into account and that you take into account?
Well, the key thing we're looking at for learning and development is, why does the learning program exist in the first place? We typically put a learning program in place because people have to learn how to do something to be able to do their jobs better. So we always want to start with the question of why. Why does management want to invest in this learning program or continue to invest in it? How is it helping the organization to achieve its organizational excellence goals? How is it helping to drive the business? And one of the things that we have to learn how to do is how to show that value to the executives using terms that they understand. And the terms that they understand are the ROI, the impact measures. If we can't show how our programs are impacting the organization to improve the performance of the people, to improve organizational performance, then how do we justify continuing the program? And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about in my session, is how we go about doing that. And we're going to look at an actual case study where they use an e-learning program to do that.
Are you ever brought in at a time where, rather than having an existing program to evaluate, it's a program that they're considering putting together, and you've got to look at it projecting out, is this going to be worth investing in from, kind of from the start?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, we prefer that. We want to include the evaluation and knowing what the payoff is and the impact that the executives want to see the program to increase. Ideally, by knowing that and defining what the why is, then we can come up with a feasible solution that's aligned to solve that business need, to improve those business measures. If we don't know what it is, what business measures they want to improve or sustain, then we're making things up when we design the program. So without knowing those business measures and the payoff that they're seeking, then we're kind of just grasping at straws out there and hoping that our program solves the problem. See, that's when our program becomes a faith-based learning program. We just tell them, just have faith in us and we'll figure it out and we'll give you something in return. Well, that's not going over too good nowadays, particularly in the current environment that we have out there. People are emerging from the COVID. They're making some very hard decisions justifying budget because a lot of cuts are coming. And if we can't demonstrate the impact and value that our programs are bringing to the organization, then that means that we're on a short list.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So what kind of factors do you use to help evaluate whether something's really going to improve performance? You've got something that's a program that has not been implemented yet. You're at the early stages where you want to be brought in. We're saying, okay, we want something that's going to improve performance of this particular audience. Is it going to be worth our while? So you, I guess, are going to both design a program to do that and justify why this is going to be worthwhile. So what are the factors that you use to help really in both? I assume you want to design something that is going to work and be effective, and you want to make sure that you have enough to justify that to the corporate audience who needs to really see something in order to make the investment.
Exactly. Well, the first thing we got to start off with is that they want to improve performance. What does that mean? So we have to kind of like peel the banana a little bit for them out there. Say, when you say improve performance, what are you trying to improve? Are you trying to improve quality? Are you trying to improve output, productivity? Are you trying to decrease or avoid costs? Are you trying to reduce the amount of time it takes something done out there? And then there's also some soft measures we want to look at. Do we want to improve what? You want to improve satisfaction of your customers or your employees? Do you want to improve your image? I mean, there's a lot. We have to really narrow in on what are the measures that they're looking at that tells them that they want to improve productivity, either because it's deficient or there's an opportunity to take it to a higher level. So we zero in on it specifically. What are those business measures that you're looking at that tells you this opportunity is here, so that we know how to design a program that's going to affect those measures.
And then, so from a process standpoint, we're trying to uncover what measures are actually important to the organization. I imagine sometimes they can come in and really tell you from the beginning, and sometimes it takes some effort to kind of work through it and figure out what really is the right thing to focus on. From a process standpoint, how does that typically work for you to get, really get to the root of what's most critical?
Well, once you find out what is the impact measures that they want to improve, then you go into what we call a performance analysis. We kind of sniff around and look within the organization and see, okay, what are the behaviors that are going on out there in the workplace that's affecting these impact measures? And it could be there's a process that's out of alignment that we need to take a look at and fix. It could be because they lack the tools or equipment, time. It could be the fact that we don't have the right incentive system in place. Why should people do this? They're not motivated to do it. There's no consequences of them not doing it that way. And then we also want to take a look at not only just what's happening within the organization, barriers that might be preventing them from performing to the level we want, but there's also things we got to take a look at within the individuals, their repertoire of behaviors out there. Do they have the knowledge and skills to do it? Do they have the capability to do it? And do they want to do it? Joe Harless, one of the creator of the front-end analysis, says typically what we do is whenever we're asked to do a task, we ask 4 questions. And one is, do I know what's expected of me? Okay, the second one is, can I do it? The third one is, will I be given the tools to do it? And the fourth one is, do I want to do it? So what we're doing during the performance analysis is we're going out there and we're trying to figure out what has to change in the workplace. What do people have to start doing, stop doing, or doing differently to change their workplace behavior so we can improve those business measures?
And then, so as you go through the process, are there key stages where you want to bring in the various stakeholders and make sure that you're on a track that's right for everybody? And if so, what are those stages?
The process is what we create is something we call a chain of value, and that's where the alignment comes in. So we want to start off with the executives. They're the ones who are going to fund it, and they're the ones who decide, okay, this is what we want to invest our money in. So the first thing they do is they decide, okay, is this an opportunity for us to achieve a positive payoff? If we invest our money in this initiative out there to improve these business measures, do we expect to receive something positive in return, a positive return? We don't want to invest money in something we're going to lose in this initiative out there to improve these business measures. Do we expect to receive something positive in return, a positive return? We don't want to invest money in something we're going to lose money on. We expect to see some type of return on it. That's where the return on investment comes in. Once we figure out what that is, then we go out into the workplace to figure out what has to change. We can't do that before we know what the business measures are, because we don't know what we're trying to figure out, what we're trying to improve. And once we figure out what has to change in the workplace, the next question we got to ask is, well, for people to change their behaviors, what do they have to learn? Even if we go out and we change a policy, they got to learn what changed in the policy and how it's going to affect them, or we change a process. So anytime something changed in the workforce, they have to learn about it. So it's just the degree, okay, on a spectrum of learning out there, how intense it's going to be. It could be informational, or it could go all the way down to, where they lack the knowledge and skills to do it, so we give them the knowledge and skills to build their capability, their confidence.
So when you get to evaluation, what does that process look like from your standpoint? What are you looking for, and what do you tend to do to try to make sure that you're evaluating, clearly evaluating whether something's going to work or not?
Well, what you evaluate is dependent upon what the needs are that you identified. So as I walk you down the different levels of needs of what the executives want at the payoff and the business need area, then we take a look at the performance needs within the workplace, then the learning needs, and then the reaction needs, how we want people to react to the course. Then what we do is we define is, okay, this is the current state. What do we want the program to improve? How much and by when? So we look at, well, how do we want people to react to this course? And someone could say, well, we typically do a 5-point Likert scale, and we want to see an average 4.0 out of a 5.0 Likert scale on the different things that are important. Okay, so what we'll do is when we collect the data at the end of the course, we'll say, did we achieve that 4.0 out of a 5.0 Likert scale? If we didn't, let's take a look at the course. If we did, that seems good. Learning, did they learn it? Typical things that we do with learning. So we have tests, assessments, practice exercises, those things. Did they learn it? And then when we get to the application level, where are they applying what they learned in the workplace? Then we're going to go out and determine, well, what do we want to see them doing differently in the workplace? So we go out and we evaluate, are they doing this when nobody's watching? Is it a part of their daily practices? And then what we do from that is, what's the consequences of them changing their practices? If they say that we want to improve, let's say we want to improve quality by 20%, that's our objective. When do you want to see it by? Would you like to see it in 6 months? So at the 6-month point, we'll go out and say, okay, did we improve quality by 20% at the 6-month point? And then finally, we calculate the ROI. Did we achieve the positive ROI objective that they wanted to see? So our evaluation is driven by answering the questions, did we achieve the objectives that are rooted in the needs?
Before, as we wrap up, anything else, any other tips and techniques you want to leave sort of for our audience? Just a few key things that they may want to think about. Again, we've covered so much during this.
Well, we'll say, okay, did we improve quality by 20% at the 6-month point? And then finally, we calculate the ROI. Did we achieve the positive ROI objective that they wanted to see? So our evaluation is driven by answering the questions, did we achieve the objectives that are rooted in the needs?
Before, as we wrap up, anything else, any other tips and techniques you want to leave sort of for our audience? Just a few key things that they may want to think about. Again, we've covered so much during this time, but as they look at best ways to evaluate and really make sure they have a strong ROI on any program they design.
I think the best thing you can do is to reassess how we define ourselves in the organization. Rather than confining ourselves to we're about learning, No, we're about performing human performance to improve organizational performance. We are the keys to finding out what's really happening in the workplace, to understand what it is that people have to do to improve their workplace behaviors, to improve organizational performance measures. So we want to be seen as business partners with a focus on the bottom line, the ROI and the impact measures that the organization and the executives are zeroing in on. That's what they manage and they monitor. And if we're not showing how we're adding value to contribute to that, then what value are we bringing to the organization?
Tim, thanks so much for your time. I very much enjoyed it. It was a pleasure talking with you, and really appreciate your taking the time to walk through this with us. You're doing a lot of interesting work, and really, of course, see the value in all of your discussions about value. So thanks once again.
My delight, David. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed a little bit more from Tim, who was enjoyable to have Tim here and talk about ROI and lots of specifics. Up next, we have Sarantos Sakaras from the School of Pedagogical and Technological Education in Athens, and he's joined us before, and we're pleased to have him back. So we're going to play his intro and then turn it over to Sarantos. All yours, and there we go. We see the slides up, and just a second until he gets all connected online. I can hear you. I cannot yet see you, and now I can see both. Excellent. All right, I'm turning the floor over to you. Thank you so much.
Can you see my
Yes,
slides?
I can see your slides. I can see you. Now we can only see you.
Okay. Everything goes
Yeah,
right.
the slides are
That's
now
fine.
gone. Now the slides are, okay, now we're seeing your screen.
You see my screen now.
Okay, now
but
we're back
not
to
my
slides. The slides, so we're back to the slides. So this,
Okay.
click the arrow when you on the
It's
screen to move the slides, and that's probably the best way to do it. The slides were preloaded.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the computational pedagogy model applied to mobile apps, especially using the app inventor. So the structure of my talk goes like, first I'm going to speak very slightly about computational thinking. Next, I will move to engineering epistemology. The third part concerns the computational science education, not the computer science education. The fourth one, I will speak a little bit about the STEM interdisciplinary approach, and then I will try to tie all of them together for my proposal, which is the computational pedagogy model for mobile learning. So, a little bit about the structure of this work. Actually, we applied at my institute, Higher Education Institute in Greece, which is educates prospective engineering educators how to use App Inventor in order to develop and not only just fancy applications, but applications related to engineering and how they can control the, say, the structure of the artifact they have created and measure the outcome of this intervention for their self-efficacy and say a computational thinking dimensions or let's say practices for some other researchers. So I will start with some issues related to the so-called cross-cutting concepts because they are very fundamental for my talk, since according to national generation science standards, for teachers' engagement in teaching and learning sequences, three major dimensions are proposed: the scientific and engineering practices, and very important is the mention to the cross-cutting ideas concepts that unify the study of science and engineering. And through my talk, I will speak a little bit about these cross-cutting concepts, which I'm sure that all of you already know. This is the cross-cutting ideas according to an NGSS are related to patterns, the cause and effect, scale, proportion, and quantity, systems, and subsystems, energy and matter, structure, function, and stability and change. And all these cross-cutting ideas are related to the core ideas, of course, of engineering. But if we want to follow the STEM integrated interdisciplinary approach, we have to consider some changes in the curriculum that they should include the cross-cutting ideas. So computational thinking, I'm sure that all of you possibly know more than I know about this subject, is let's say a concept that was proposed many years ago by Papert, but these days, after the seminal paper by Wing, it came again to the floor. And for my, let's say, point of view, I will insist on, I will focus, let's say, on a taxonomy proposed by Goldrop and others in 2016. A taxonomy consisting of four main categories: data practices, modeling, and simulation practices, because actually what I applied at my class was computational and simulation practices related, and how they're related to computational thinking. Here you can see a nice picture of the dimensions and practices of computational thinking. And here is the above mentioned, let's say, practices proposed by Winthrop and his colleagues about data practices, modeling and simulation practices, computational problem-solving practices, and system thinking practices. And I focus on this because we use that in our research in order to see how computational thinking is related to cross-cutting ideas when the computational pedagogy model is applied through the use of App Inventor. So engineering can be divided into engineering content and engineering design. And during this course, we focus not only on engineering content, because students have, of course, courses on engineering, electric machines, logical thinking, gates, etc. But we wanted, as from the educational perspective point of view, I mean, from the pedagogical point of view, to see how the engineering design can enhance their engagement in the computational thinking practices. So we think that I will move a little bit faster here. In my class, for many years now, I applied the so-called computational science, and I forgot to include this in my presentation due to the time limitations, but we applied the computational science and not the computer science, because we think that computational science is something broader that includes computational thinking and computer science, and of course mathematics through the numerical analysis. So after we moved to STEM, and of course you know that there are many different approaches to STEM education. We adopt the say interdisciplinary content approach, where the focus is on one problem to be solved and how the different cognitive disciplines interact in order to solve this problem. So we adopt the content approach, not the context approach, in order to solve problems related to engineering using the computational science. So content integration focuses on the merging of the content fields into one single curriculum activity and or unit in highlighting big transversal ideas from multiple content areas. Here you can see the interaction of engineering, technology, science, and mathematics through a STEM content approach. And finally, the theoretical model, me and my colleagues have published a lot of papers about that, is the computational science experiment embedded with engineering design and computational thinking. So what actually we applied during a course, and I would like to stress that students are engineers, but in this university, actually they have a 5-year course because they are engaged in pedagogy for 5 years. So they have 2 degrees actually, the degree of the engineer plus the degree of engineering educator. So from the first year of their studies until the 5th year of their studies, they are engaged also in pedagogical issues, and the courses I teach are related to how to, say, integrate STEM education, not STEM as for disciplines, but STEM education in pedagogy. So the model we have proposed for 3-4 years now is computational science education, which is well known, plus the integration of this model with computational thinking and engineering design. So after this introduction, I would like to go directly to the research area. And also there is another issue that I would like to stress is how mobile learning could be connected with computing. And if you see the last call of the European Commission about the different terms used in education, it will be a real mess because there are terms like computing, what's computing, what's computation, what is computational, and so what's ICT, how ICT is related to computing. So at my opinion, and according to research, of course, computing is something which includes computational thinking plus computer engineering. So after this a little bit confusing introduction, I think, the methodology of this, of this approach is to examine the impact of teaching using the computational pedagogy model and by the implementation of App Inventor on learning self-efficacy for computational thinking practices when cross-cutting ideas are included in a STEM content course. This was the core, the nucleus of the research. Based on the discussions reported in literature, measuring self-efficacy is certainly necessary in order to develop new pedagogical methods in order to address the problems related to computer programming. We use 2 questionnaires. One is the CPES questionnaire by Corman and Artun for self-efficacy. And of course, we adjust questions because this questionnaire was referred to C++. And we tried with my colleagues to make an equivalent questionnaire which instead of C++ to use commands related to App Inventor. The second questionnaire was about computational thinking. I will talk about this a little bit later. 30 prospective electrical engineering educator students participated in this research during the course of pedagogical application of computers. And the objective of this research was to examine the impact of using optical programming with App Inventor on student self-efficacy for CT programming under the condition of cross-cutting concepts implementation. Questions for CPES questionnaire were modified to be in alignment with the use of optical programming, not the text-based programming like C++. And I will go to the some interfaces that we used here in order to measure the equivalent capacity or to measure the period of an artifact created through the engineering course. we try to focus on real problems, like, for example, the anemometer and such kind of things that the students have to, let's say, control through App Inventor and Arduino some artifacts they had created. Of course, we used a very well-validated questionnaire about computational thinking by Wiz et al., which is a very good questionnaire, in my opinion. And the parity test was deployed to compare the means of the same group in the pre-tested bot test. Of course, we are aware that there are limitations due to the small number of students and the limitation of times, but I would like to say that students, they already know about the engineering concepts. They have been taught these concepts through the studies in courses like physics, electric motors, etc. And of course, results, I'm going to direct the results. Results show a significant change in students' responses for self-efficacy for computational thinking before and after the instruction using the CPES questionnaire. The results also indicate a significant relation between the responses between the self-efficacy for the two questionnaires. Something that was, what I want to say is that we measure the self-efficacy at the computational thinking before and after the instruction. And of course, what we actually found was something which was expected, not only to find an improvement, but to find a relationship between the computational thinking and self-efficacy. So a parity test was applied for the 23 questions of the questionnaire, indicating a significant difference in self-efficacy for CT concepts, and you can see here the p-value, which indicates a significant difference in self-efficacy for programming before and after the instruction using the App Inventor. And our results are in alignment with research findings that indicate that the use of App Inventor enhances students' capacity for problem solving, because I insist on problem solving because we think that students did not actually create something which was just a kind of, say, an artifact without relation to these studies, but an artifact related to problem solving. And finally, the findings above are in agreement with those of some other researchers and indicate that students' perceptions change using App Inventor as they feel as producers and not only consumers of digital technology. And I would like to say from the beginning that students were negative at the beginning for the use of App Inventor. They're reluctant to use that, but after some 2 or 3 periods of application, they feel more comfortable, and they thought that sometimes if you have passed from C++ courses, it will be more logical to move to optical programming instead of going from optical programming to text-based programming. So this is my talk, and I hope to show you some of our ideas and the proposals, etc. Okay, thank you for your attention, and I would like to thank the organizers for their very, very nice efforts and very, say, trying to resolve all these problems, and I would like to wish you to be safe and healthy.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here. We do have time for a couple of questions. You can stick around.
Okay.
We have one from the chat already, and we have a question about, did you use an Arduino with App Inventor or standalone and Scratch programming? And then some other questions from the comment as well. So that's the first question. So I want to start with that. They're both from the same person.
Okay, we use Arduino and microbit also with App Inventor. Not only Arduino, but we use also App Inventor and microbit.
Okay. All right. Second question is, how did you utilize the art part of STEAM? And related to that, did you have difficulty incorporating all the components of STEAM? Same person, by the way, says microbit is cool, so we do need to get that in. And Elizabeth Barber also says microbit is cool. But yes, how did you use the art part of STEAM, and did you have difficulty incorporating all components of STEAM?
Well, I think that's a very difficult question to be answered. STEAM is something which is like a studio learning, how to learn students using a studio, actually. So, for example, when we use, say, anemometers, we try to include some kinds of arts in that. So I don't think that, I think that STEM without art and art, they have a dual relationship. One feeds the other. So you have to think that using STEM, you have to focus on abstraction. And abstraction means not only modeling, but also means also some kind of art. So this is my preliminary answer to that, which is a difficult question, and I don't think that there is an answer yet, a concrete answer to this relationship.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And there's the follow-up comment from Elizabeth Barber, who with us, that she feels also that they all interlink, and that she feels that art does always have to be a part of STEM, and it's hard to sort of separate, which makes sense. And we talked about that a little bit earlier with some of the other talks involving even the engineering talk involving 21st century skills, that it's not, you know, everything sort of connects, and trying to figure out where the lines are is such a challenge to make sure that we get people in the right environments in all ways. So other comments are so far comments that it's a great presentation, and everybody really seemed to really enjoyed it. And anything else? Other questions in the chat before I let him go? And I think that's going to be it. All right. Well, then we'll let you go. Thank you so much for staying up. I think, well, I guess it's not late for someone in Greece, but it is later than it is here. So thanks for spending your evening with us to give your talk. And it's great to see you. And we hope to see you back in New York next time.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, I would like to be in New York next year. Okay.
Fantastic. Terrific. All right. Take care. And thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So we have just a few minutes, more, and then we're going to get on to the next thing. So, every talk seems to come with some similar themes in a certain sense, and really one of the things I enjoy most about this conference is seeing the themes that emerge, and one that keeps coming up maybe more than I had imagined even going into the conference is this idea of sort of a holistic approach to education, right? So there's sort of this it's not quite a conflict, but on one hand, we have the need for a holistic approach that we all agree that you don't want to teach someone to just be a computer programmer and not learn any of the other skills. Don't be an engineer and not learn any other skills. We see that to do well and survive in the world today, even if you don't have technical skills, there's a certain level of technology skills that you need to be able to sort of just do everyday tasks. And that's been an issue for some groups as they move to online learning from the instructor standpoint. And so we see this from all sides. My personal view is I'd like to see the technology become easier to use, right? So everybody can use the televisions. It's not complicated. Can we keep building technology that's easier and easier for people to use? And then on the other hand, looking for skills that people can use to function appropriately in society, to work with others, to work in teams, to produce the best work and the best life. And Elizabeth points out 21st century skills, and that's been the term that we've seen here. And there's so much involved in doing that and thinking about how we can best use technology, among other things, to help people become well-rounded, to help people be in situations where they pursue the things that are most interesting to them, but also get exposed to some other things that are a little bit different. And there's so much to that. And it seems to come up more and more in every talk that we had. We've seen it just in Sigrid and Igor's talk on 21st century skills. We saw it just now with Sarantos, and we've seen it throughout the conference as something that always emerges. And it's an interesting thing to think about as we see where technology fits in best and what we can do with it to make it more humanizing rather than less humanizing. And Donna points out forward-thinking learning, designing of courses. Yes, absolutely. And designing, we spoke this morning with the panel, courses, but perhaps not always courses, right? We're seeing less, more of a need for things that aren't necessarily courses, that are just in time, that are short, that are, things that you might not have imagined would exist some time ago, especially in traditional education. And the more we can reimagine what education is as a whole and what workplace learning means as a whole, the better off the better off we are. And Patricia points out that, skills or competences, absolutely, we'll look at it from a skills standpoint. And then, the challenge there is still also to not, to what degree do you isolate the skills, right? And I think that's what we're seeing in the conversation with this last talk, right? It's not just skills that live on their own, because you need to be able to connect things and be a fully a holistic person. And we want to encourage creativity. We want people to get the most out of, themselves. We want people to enjoy the work that they're doing and enjoy the things that they're producing, and, find new skills that they may not have known they've had, find new interests that they might not have known that they've had. And all of this plays into the kinds of experiences that we want to produce. And there's always, it feels like something we're always exploring further and pushing the boundaries in terms of what we can do and what we want to do. So lot to think about. I think what we're going to do now, maybe it's a couple minutes before plan, but Patricia Bahar and I sat down a couple weeks ago and talked about her university and her work, and there's just a lot going on there. And she actually put together a little presentation for us that was pre-recorded. So this is an interview, but I have a few questions in there, but also she has slides and came tremendously prepared for the interview. And it was really interesting to hear all the things that they're doing at their university that are very sophisticated. And she talked a lot about that and some other things. So we have about a half hour with Patricia, and we're going to run that now and see you back on the other side.
Hi, here I'm Patricia Alejandra Bear. I'm professor from the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul. Here it's the map where we are, Porto Alegre, in Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil. And we are connected with the education school and the Interdisciplinary Center of New Technology in Education. Our Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul have until this semester, like graduate students, 32,700 students graduate face-to-face, and online we have 433 now, but we are now beginning to have more students online. Everybody's going to be online. And postgraduate students, 6,100, master 650, and specialization course like 5,000 students.
Are all of these students
About me
already working online? Do you have out of those 32,000, have they moved to online already, or they're just about to?
Yes.
Because, of course.
Yes. Yeah. We are now beginning from the face-to-face to online modality. Yes, everybody. Okay,
so it's all in progress because of the pandemic, but they didn't all move there yet. You're kind of unlike some universities, sounds like you have a process and you're taking a little bit of time to move people over.
Yeah,
is that
the public university, we begin the post-graduation course, and some courses that we have like online course, but the presential course, they are moving now.
Great.
About me, I'm full professor and researcher at the education school, and full professor in the post-graduation programs in education and in computer science in education. And I'm director of a research group that the name is Digital Technology Nucleus in Education. This is my group. It's a very big group.
How many people total in your group? I mean, there's a lot of people in the photo, certainly.
Yeah, like 30 between graduate students, postgraduate students, and people that works in a laboratory, like programmers and designers. I entered in university in 1988. And I have like an interdisciplinary approach because I'm from computer science, and now I'm working the education school. And then I have to do an interdisciplinary approach to teach digital technology to future professors, teachers and professors. And I began in like 20 years ago to develop the first environment, virtual environment in our university. I began to develop for myself, and then the university know about it, and then they call me to do online environment for all the university. Only this. The graduate course that I teach, it's like media, digital technology and education. This is face-to-face, computer in education, and now like digital technology in education. And a lot of several online courses offered the university and the Ministry of Education. And also in the post-graduation course for the master and the postgraduate, like PhD students. My research are about pedagogical architecture in distance learning, competencies distance education. We always, 23 years that we are developing different virtual environments, and we work a lot with learning objects and learning design. I supervise 5 or 6 now postdoctors, PhD, 31 PhD theses, 24, like 26 master theses, and 1 Fulbright student. I think this is the reason that in 2 years ago, I was a visitor professor in Columbia University, like Fulbright visitor professor. Now I'm the supervisor of 3 postdoctorates and 6 PhD and 4 master theses. I have like more than 175 national, international paper in journals, international journals, 43 chapters in national, international books. And I wrote 3 books here in Brazil that we sell in Portugal, also in a lot of countries that speaks in Portuguese, because they are in Portuguese. The Roda virtual learning environment that I developed 20 years ago, it's a free and user-centered software. We use more than 52,000 users here in the university. It's a lot of people. Then I think with this pandemic, we are going to use more and more, because I think this year we are not going to return in face-to-face modality. This is the interface of the Roda, and we also works with Planet Roda. That's a very nice environment that we are using in the schools with children's. And it's very similar for a virtual environment with the classes, projects, forum, all the functionalities that all the environments have, but it's for children in Portuguese, and we are using in several schools this kind of environment. We also are in the 3rd or 4th version, and it's so nice because there are planets, and each group in the schools can select the planet that they are going to use, and the teacher can select the functionalities that they need in this specific group. It depends of the profile of the group in the schools, and then they can select the functionalities that they have to use, like classes, activities, my page, the course page, project, and now we have the forum also. And it's also nice. Also another environment that we develop, it's the ETC. This is in Spanish, in Portuguese, and in English. And it's like Google Docs, but we develop for the university, because we know that the Google Docs, all the documents that we develop in the Google Docs, they are not our documents, but they are from Google. Then the university asks that if we have developed like a Google Docs, but for our university. This I developed 15 years ago, and we are in the third version, also fourth version. It's so nice, and with a recommendation system also. Okay, this is the interface. My first book, it's about pedagogical model in distance education. Was published 11 years ago, but it's so interesting that it's so modern until these days. It's about how we can construct courses for distance education. And this is our big problem now in our university, because all the professors want to transfer the presential classes for the distance education, and it's completely different. We have specific organization, methodology, the contents, and also the technology that we have to think. And now they are using a lot our book. This is the base of the book about the pedagogical model. We have a pedagogical architecture that it's composed by the organizational aspect, the content aspects, the methodological aspect, and the technology aspect. And this last week, I gave a speech for all the university about how we can, well, for me, it's very simple because I used to work with distance education for 23 years. My classes, it's so easy to give online. We have like a Zoom, but a specific system from our university. But the professor here in our university, for them, it's so difficult. They don't know how to transfer the presential pedagogical architecture for a distance education, and how are the strategies for this application. And our book have all these concepts to construct this new course that we have to do in our university. My second book, it's about competencies in distance education, because when we work with distance education, we have specific competencies. It's not all the professor and all the students that can work in online course. Of course, now everybody have to work, but in this book, I wrote about the concepts of competencies, the set of elements, which are the competencies that are necessary for professors, students, and tutor, specific in online course. And this was 7 years ago. now we are working about a new book about digital competency, specifically the digital competence in distance education. This is the elements of our competencies. I know that in United States, we work about the skills and competencies, but in my book, I understand that the competencies are for a group of elements, that it's the knowledge, the abilities, and the attitudes. And then this is a competence. And then in this book, I present different areas and the competence to work in distance education. Another system that is so important that we work also in our university, it's a learning object recommender system based on competence to education. The professor can't do all his classes, and he can test the system with, we test the system with post-graduation groups, and the research, we do a lot of research in this recommender system. And the basis, it's, well, it's in Portuguese that for you are not going to understand, but the principal thing and that we put the courses and we link which are the competencies that we want to develop in our students. And then the system recommend learning options that we can use in these classes. This was like 12 years ago, and now we are doing a final version, but we are using also in our university. Another thing that I'm working in my research group, it's about the socio-affective student profile. And because when we work with distance education, we have to see the profile of these students. And one of the things is how we can recognize the forms of the social interaction, the influence of the personality traits, and demonstrate attitudes in the form of acting or expressing, can aid the construction of the social affective profile in virtual learning participants. This is a criterion that we use to the recommendation of pedagogical strategies for the teacher. And then we construct two technology, that is the social map and the affective map, that we can see how is the profile of these students when we are giving online classes. And the affective and social maps in the virtual learning environment, specifically in RODA, we use the influence of the personality traits, we use the observation of the demonstrated attitudes, the students' moods, the motivational factors, and the social interaction between our actors. This is our social affective map. Each week, we can see if he is satisfied, he's interested, he's not interested, he's dissatisfied, and we use a theory of to measure these emotions. If he's proud, he's satisfied, he's interested, he's sad, he's disgusted, and we mine. It's like data mining, that we mine all the affective data in the environment. It's the RODA environment.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. Like, what kinds of data are you looking at? Are you looking at, like, how much time they spent in a course and how much they progressed and how hesitant they were to move to new activities? I'm just curious to know what kinds of things you're able to include to assess that.
Is the affective words that he write in the system. He can write in the forum, he can write in his web folio, he can write in a chat, and then we can see we have a Bayesian system in the background. It's very complex. I'm not going to explain the technological form that how we construct, but it's the affective words that enter in a very big dictionary about the affective words, and then we have the principal affective words that return to our system, and we can see in which quadrant if he's satisfied or not, because sometimes we know that in online course they drop off. It's very normal here. And then we can see in the affective map and the social map if they are interact, or if they are completely absent, they are not interacting with nobody in our environment. The other map.
So you're computationally analyzing primarily the student's own words. So where they're in the chat, or where they're in a discussion forum, or anything that they chose to enter. So that's where a lot of so this is a really sophisticated, as you kind of alluded to, computational way of assessing things.
Yes.
And then you're also looking at who they interact with, I guess, as a gauge of who their support might be, to get a sense for whether they're maybe more likely to stick around because they have a support system. Is that sort of an accurate view of a lot of this? Great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
you
great.
explain perfect. Better than me. You understand?
Glad I got it right. Okay. No, this is fantastic. This is really, really interesting, and I can, see this applying in so many, in so many situations. And as you keep, does the system?
Perfect. Better than me. You understand?
Glad I got it right. Okay. No, this is fantastic. This is really, really interesting, and I can, see this applying in so many, in so many situations. And as you keep does the system improve over time? Do you feel like it, it gets a better and better feel for, accurately analyzing somebody's mood and somebody's likelihood to leave a course based on the words? Like if you look at it, as the system progresses?
Yes,
Does it
yes,
get better?
yes.
Yeah.
This is the base of this map and this system, and he's accoppled in the virtual learning environment that I construct for the university. These two maps, and we have these two maps: the affective map and the social map. And with these answers from this map, when we can see. The system returns the best pedagogical strategies that the professor have to do in his or her classes. It's very, very good because some professors, they don't know how to see these maps and they don't know how to do with the groups. And then we have a recommender system inside the system that they recommend pedagogical strategies, what to do with this kind of data.
So like they might see, for example, tell me if I have this right, I got it right before, maybe I have this one right. Do they say, like you might see students are participating, but they're arguing too frequently, so the professor might want to change the strategy. Is that the kind of thing that might be useful, might be useful for?
If he's not interested, okay, you have to give more feedback, you have to motivate, and what to do with this kind of profile of the student. And
is it all individual, or are there also things that they do for the class? Like, do they recognize that, oh, well, almost, nobody's paying attention or everybody's fighting with each other?
No.
This is at the individual level, student individual.
Now we have individual, but we are constructing now the profile of the group, and the pedagogical strategies for a group, because it's different.
Yeah.
It's different from individual and for a collective. It's completely different.
Great. No, that's great. This is fantastic.
My third book. It's about pedagogical recommendation. It's the third book. And I work in this book with the pedagogical recommendation because the principal idea is we use the recommendation system in e-commerce, in everywhere. Why we don't use these systems in the education to recommend what? To recommend pedagogical strategies, to recommend learning object, to recommend groups that I have a group and I have a profile, and the system can recommend which persons have the same profile or not to do a specific work, about the assessment of the recommendation and a new tendency about recommendation system for education. This was published the last year, but we are working about. And this is my last research about digital competence, about pedagogical models for the ETC, that is the collective text. We are working with mobile learning, with the social interaction and affective maps, the Planeta Roda, it's for digital literacy. And we have a lot of works for elderly, mapping digital competences. And we have a very big group, like more than 100 people between 60s and 90s years old, that now they are doing the class online. But it's so nice to give class about digital technology for this kind of people. It's about the digital inclusion of seniors. And we construct also a Brazilian digital competence framework between the 2014 and 2014, 2017. This is the link. I'm not going to show because it's another speech, but it's about digital competence for Brazilian, because it's completely different, the digital competence from European profile, from American profile. Then we do a very nice work. This is the link, this one. But it's all in Portuguese, but it's focusing Brazilian students that are different. I was in Columbia University and I saw that the American profile, it's completely different from the Brazilian profile. And then we construct this framework that in Brazil they are using a lot. We base this framework in the Open University of Catalonia, that we have a very an international project with them. And then this is our last project about the quality of life for all elderly and digital social network with seniors. Then we are looking for the life quality, the digital social inclusion. We work with mobile learning, with undergraduate courses, with senior, in extension course for teachers also. And I think is that. Oh, my plans, what was my plans in ED Lab in Columbia University? I work with a project that was very interesting, the training of the students of Columbia through online courses using the technology resource and focusing construction of digital competence. And we map in Columbia the digital competence through the exchange of the experience between the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul and the Teacher College of the Columbia University. It was very, very nice. We wrote with Gary and his we wrote a very nice paper. I work in the ED Lab recommendation projects also because the social map and the affective map in Columbia, they was very interested, and then they developed in the ED Lab the same social map for the online course in the Teacher College. Okay, I think it's that.
No, thank you so much. There was so much there. You've had such a accomplished career and kind of have built on the work that you've done. So I was very particularly interested in the work that you're doing to analyze students' performance and their moods, really more than performance, but their way that they're interacting with the courses, and then using that to improve pedagogy and improve pedagogical strategies. So no, I think that's great. So that's one. So at that point in that area, you're working, I know you said you've got individuals now and you're working on some group and team analysis coming up soon. And so that's kind of one of your next big projects at this point that's ongoing?
Maybe. We are working with this, and also now with active methodologies. I don't know if in United States you are working with that, but in Brazil, we are working a lot with active methodologies in e-learning also. This is the new project, new studies, and also about the recommendation system for groups, not only individual, for groups. We are using also the Big Five, that it's a psychology test, but we implement in a computational system. Then we can see the psychological profile of our students, and then we can combine for a group. This is our next project, actual project.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. And there's so much that I think you're able to do with the data and in ways that can improve the experience, and that's really the goal. And it's great to hear about that. Well, thank you so much for talking with me and walking me through all this. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
back live after seeing Patricia, and she talked about her work and her books. To my knowledge, her book is not available in English yet, and I hope it will be. I hope if I'm wrong, Patricia, please tell me. But I don't believe it is yet. If it is, I would certainly like to buy it and read it. And if it's not, then let's all do what we can to get it there. So I'll see if we can find out for sure. I don't believe that's the case. One of the things that's most interesting to me about the work that's going on in Patricia's university and her lab is the idea of tracking, the sort of some of the right information, I guess, about learners, information that can be used to help their experiences later on. There's a lot of interesting technology that they're using there, and that they have their own systems set up to do that. And you're not looking at tracking information to give someone a score and to give them a performance assessment and say this is and certainly not say this is what's wrong with you. And I think that's an American thing that we see a lot in corporate learning is here's what's wrong, here's what you need to fix. And those aren't entirely wrong things all the time, but really the style of here's what we're going to look at, here's what we can do, here's what's going to interest you, here's how we can help you, here's some things that you can improve on. Those are all legitimate things. But if we look at data in that way and look at the ways that we can use technology to build personalized and customized experiences, we so many places that we can go. And ideally, to me, to get away from the from the sort of the score mentality and the idea that people kind of look for ways to beat the tests as well. And we see Beth Barber saying that the tests in school for her were subjective, and that's not always the best to measure, especially in graduate level. Yeah, it's a question. I mean, objectivity versus subjectivity is a big question, right? So if you have knowledge-based, fact-based multiple choice questions, you can be objective, but are you testing something that's a value? And the answer isn't always yes, and that's, I think, where we get into some difficulty in how we do it. And it's probably a topic for another not only another talk for another conference. I think we could probably do 3 days on that alone. And I'm not sure I wouldn't want to do that as far as all this goes. I think assessment is a big issue. We try to look for, at least in my own view, performance assessments where we can. Certainly evaluating them is is going to be more subjective. And sometimes there's not always a right answer, and there's a lot to think about. And Beth mentions the level of mastery, and that's true. But what does it mean to master a skill? What does it mean to master a creative skill? How do you evaluate that? And there's sort of a balance, I think, in terms of what we want some level of of evaluation. We need to try to figure out how people progress and how to help people progress and what progression means and what advancement means, and those are all terms that matter. But on the other hand, there's people are individuals. They have their own views. They have their own particular skill sets, and we can easily constrain that. And I think we've seen a lot of that in parts of the educational system that we've had for years, and hopefully can get passed. So yeah, saying it's like art, I think is accurate. We want one of the reasons we look at the holistic view and want art as part of as part of STEM, and it all goes together. So this is a great discussion. Even if it's a little bit sort of oddly one-sided, I'm talking and reading what other people say, but it's a lot of fun for me. I'd love to continue it at next year's conference and ideally before that in person. So thanks to everyone for that. We are ready to move on to our next presenter. And this is our final normal, I guess I'm saying normal talk, because that's sort of has its own meanings. Our final presentation session, and then we'll follow with the close for where I'll talk and give announce the winners of the International E-Learning Awards. So we have Cher Downing from Downing EdTech in Phoenix, who's going to talk to us about teams. So following on what we're discussing, we're going to talk more about teams, how to understand your teams, how to create synergy and increase productivity, all things that we want. To turn it over. Slide should be up in a second, and there we are. It's all yours. I can see you, and I can hear you. So take it away.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to just make a little bigger screen for everyone. Thank you all for attending today. I know it's always hard to hang in till the very last space of the day. In Phoenix here, we're just around lunchtime, so we still have a ways to go to get through the business day. But I wanted to bring a topic to you here because I have worked with it in both the higher education setting and then also now in the consulting setting. And it became even more prevalent from the time when I put in to attend the conference and to present to when COVID-19 occurred and everybody had to suddenly reevaluate how they deal with teams. So I wanted to bring to you Team Talk, which is understanding your teams. You may have 1, you may have 5, you may have 10, and give you some helpful hints in creating synergy and increasing your productivity. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Oops, I think it's the right spot there. So I've talked with a lot of people working in companies and in higher ed over the years, and have really learned that there are 2 basic questions that come to mind for managers every Monday morning. One is, what are the deadlines that are impending? So what have we got to get done this week? And then how do I get my employees to share a sense of urgency for those deadlines and issues? So as you all know, it's really hard sometimes for others to absorb how concerned you are that you're going to meet those Friday deadlines, that you're going to get that work done. And so that is something that you can go in and tell somebody, you know, I'm really concerned, I'm really feeling a sense of urgency. But they kind of look at you and may go, oh yeah, you kind of react that way to everything, and they move on. Others will sense your urgency, but it starts to paralyze them because it makes them urgent. So one of the things that you have to learn is what is on your to-do list as a manager. So not about the projects that you're working on, but what's the best use of those team members? How do you keep them motivated? And what makes them a great team? So over the years, we've always had a focus of taking teams, once you hire everyone, moving that team forward in a herd mentality. And we get very disgruntled when not the entire team is working at the same pace, when they're not feeling the same emotions about projects and ideas. They're really just not synergized. And the reason for that is that we have 5 basic areas that people react to. One is identifying the characteristics and skills of each individual. You hired them not all at once. You brought them in because they have a specific skill set. They brought a different characteristic to the organization. So why you purposely chose them separate and then now try to treat them all the same isn't working. 2 is creating a balance. One of the hardest things to do in teams is to get them balanced and moving forward. So are they really equitable in the workload, or is it a matter of there's different times and ways that you can kind of shift that around? Is there a balance in terms of their skill set and what you're asking them to do? Are you providing enough tools? Are you providing enough support so that they can be successful and get those things done? The 3rd is creating dialogue, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. 4th is understanding the team dynamics. And again, this is getting to know everybody all together and how they're working and how they are coordinating with each other and also with you as the manager. And then 5 is creating an atmosphere. So characteristic and skills, your most important tool. This really is something that gets overlooked many, many times when teams get put together. Your individual team members come in with a lot of strengths. They have fragilities. And I always say fragility and not weakness, because it's not a weakness if you're not knowledgeable in an area. It's not a weakness if you haven't done something. It's that there's a fragility in your credentials or in your exposure to something. And so that needs to be cultivated and moved forward. And then there's interests. Oftentimes you have someone on your team who would really love to work on a special project and they really want to contribute. And when you don't acknowledge that, then they become just very focused on individual things and really more siloed as opposed to coming together as a team member. So you really want to take advantage of this when you get your team together, or if you inherit a team that's already there, that you take a moment to step back and you look at their characterizations and you look at their skills. So here's just a quick list of a chart that you can make of your team members. Software knowledge. Find out who knows which softwares are available, which ones are very fluent in them, which ones need help in it. Look at their technical backgrounds. Maybe you brought somebody in because they have hardware experience. You may not have a direct hardware related project, but you may have something that needs their expertise or their experience in having those situations. A strategist, is there someone that always looks big picture and starts to think through the whole project as soon as you introduce it? The planner. We always end up with someone on the team that immediately wants to know, so what's our timeline for this? They want to know how many months or weeks are involved so that they can start to back out of that and start to analyze where they need to have certain metrics and certain stakes met. Are they detail oriented? You always have that person that takes a lot of notes. They're writing down everything. They're looking at every little piece of information that's there. And so you really want to rely on them because they're the ones that capture everything. You know that person. They're sitting around your table and when you're having a conversation and somebody says, well, I didn't know we were going to do this. They're the person that speaks up and says, we talked about it at the last meeting. They're that level of detail orientation and they can be very valuable. A historical perspective is always good. If you have someone that's worked for a long time, or maybe they've worked with the same situation or project at a different company or a different institution, they have a good understanding of where it's come from. One thing that we've learned over the last few years is with online learning, obviously, we all started out kind of in the same playing field. Some schools grew very rapidly. Some corporations with their online training grew very rapidly. Others kind of plateaued out. So if you have someone that came from one of those types of situations, they've got a good historical perspective on where things could have went better, where things went really great, how did they implement new things. Take advantage of that perspective that they're bringing to you. The last one is new to the organization. There's a benefit in seeing your organization and your team through fresh eyes. So it's always good to have that new employee share with you, what are they noticing? What are they seeing? What do they feel like they're missing? What did they have at their last job that they really enjoyed? I worked with someone once who talked about the fact that they had a idea board and you could just go and pin up a sticky note with an idea. And every week, all of those ideas would be flushed through and talked about and either moved to a pending file or put into the queue to be started, or there would be an explanation for why it wasn't possible to do something at this time. You see a lot through their eyes that you've just gotten used to because you're always there, your team's always together. So take advantage of their perspective and take advantage of asking them to contribute early. Don't let them come in and say, well, once you get settled and once you start to understand us, then start to contribute, because you lose a lot of valuable information at that time. 2 is creating a balance. So one of the things that we've continued to teach over the years is hire a team, give them a project, push them forward. And again, when we don't have a team that has synergy and solidifies well together, you know that there are going to be bumps in the road. Part of the team's going to work hard, part of the team's going to work less. They're not going to agree on the directions that they're going. They're not going to agree on how to bring the project together. Oftentimes somebody comes to you as an individual and says, hey, there's a lot of friction on the team, we're not getting along. Again, part of this is because one person doesn't have a skill set in an area that someone else is very advanced in. So it's frustrating for them, waiting on someone to catch up, or it's frustrating for someone who doesn't understand, trying to learn rapidly while this is being presented. So you have the opportunity here to take a project and break it into subgroups. Look at that list that you made of your characteristics and skills and create sub-teams that are valuable, that either have similar synergies that can work based on the nature of your product, or that you're having a team that's brought together that really just kind of shows a little bit of each area that they can work forward and take that idea and concept into the next steps. You certainly can bring the team back together for full participation, and it's a good idea to do that. Bring them back in maybe once every couple weeks, maybe once a week, depending upon your timeline. Bring them back, have each subgroup report, talk about how those subgroups are going to bring this project together into a holistic finished product. But you'll find you get much more synergy in the subgroups, and you're going to get a lot more productivity out of it because they're not waiting on each other and they're not struggling with each other. This is something that I have seen time and time again. When you create that balance on a team, you can really increase your productivity 20 to 40%. You really have taken out the boundaries and the struggles that they are having previously. It also reflects back on you as a manager. You don't have as many one-off conversations of people who are struggling on their team or struggling with the concept. You have smaller groups that you can meet with in a more rapid discussion. A 5-minute quick catch-up can really do a lot for them to progress forward and for you to have an answer in terms of how the project is going. So I encourage you to really try looking at any time that you can create a balance and do subgroups. It really can be beneficial. Even if you teach, I will do this with my classes, and I will have students break into subgroups based on their characteristics and skills. What I find is they get a lot more out of the methodology and they get a lot more out of the topic. And we get a better quality of product that comes out that then everyone shares together. So really something to think about as you're working through this. Number 3 is create dialogue. So obviously, because of the situation we're in right now, I chose this picture. Best practices first. Right now, everyone is concerned about the residual of COVID-19. We're not sure where it's going for this fall. So if you're an organization that's bringing your team together, even just periodically, and you're the manager, make sure that you're doing what the best practice is. So if you're to be wearing a mask, if that's what your company requests, if that's what your institution states has to happen, you need to set the tone. You need to be doing that. If you feel like it's okay and your team is okay with coming together like this and practicing social distancing, then you take the lead in it. If you feel like things can be done remotely and you can do this over any sort of software, then do that as well. Best practices also mean what is it that you're looking for and how you want them to do things. Be clear in your expectations. I would like a report every Friday afternoon on where your sub-team is at. I would like a report on how much was spent out of the budget for items every week. Whatever that is, make sure that you set the tone and that you set up those best practices so everyone on the team is comfortable, they're confident, and they recognize what the expectations are. Second is participants. If you sit around the table with everyone that's on your team and you really think, just look at each person for about 2 minutes. Look at that person for 2 minutes and think, what do I know about this person? If you barely know their name or you barely know what they do within your team, that's a problem because that's a participant that isn't fully ingrained for you to rely on, to ask questions of, to make them feel part of the team. So while you may be thinking that they're holding back and not sharing information, part of it may be because you haven't set up that relationship and that expectation that when you're here in the meeting, we expect everyone to participate. So make sure you go around, look at your team, look at your groups, whomever you're working with, and really make sure that you know them. And if you don't, that's a good time to set up a meeting with them, just informal. Don't sit behind a desk and them on the other side like they're interviewing, but just have an informal 5-minute conversation with them. Just get to know them, understand why they're on the team, what they hope to gain from it, share your appreciation for them being there, make sure that they know that they're valued, and then that dialogue becomes easier and easier every time. Problem solve. Ask them to look at things. And it doesn't just have to be the project that you're working on. It doesn't have to be necessarily that there's a deadline or something. Think about long-term visions and short-term visions. So you can ask them something as short as, we're clearly going to be meeting over Zoom for the next 2 months. Please let me know if you have any ways to make the meetings go faster, go better. How would things be easier for you? Is it easier for me to attach documents right in the call, or should I email them to you ahead of time? That little bit of problem solving lets them know that you're interested, that you want to be able to talk with them and you want to look for their input. Problem solving can be longer. You can say, over the next 6 months, we're unsure how much we're going to be working at home and how much we're going to be working in the office. So I want you to be thinking about what are the things we should have in place so that whichever direction we go, we have an understanding of how this is going to work. Use them as value and allow them to feel part of the team and part of the interest in doing this. 4 is understand the team dynamics. So now you've taken them into sub-teams, you've gotten to know everybody individually. Now you're bringing them back around the table as the full team. So I liked this picture because you have one person sitting there, her hands are right next to her keyboard. She is ready to take notes in a minute. If you look across from her, there's someone with a pencil in her hand. She is ready to write. If you look at the other person with his hand up, he's saying, okay, I already want to contribute. Then you have a couple people walking in who are late to the meeting. So you can already see all the seats are taken. They're not even in the room yet. This is understanding the team dynamics. So people that are running late, it happens to all of us. But if it's consistent, you want to have a conversation with those folks and you want to not talk to them about why you expect them to be on time for yourself in the meeting. You want to talk to them about the impact it has on their team. So this picture, clearly they're already having a conversation. They're already in the depths of talking about a project. They're already getting ready to contribute. And these 2 individuals walking in have missed a lot of that. That's the point you want to get across to them. It's not about punching the clock. It's not about making them feel bad. It's about making them recognize the team dynamics and how it's important that they're there, that they hear all the contributions, that they hear the questions, and that they're there to also contribute as well. You can see the person with her pencil there. She's probably a detail-oriented person. She's your person that's going to write down notes, going to have every level of detail that you need. She may be one that you call on during the meeting to go back and say, can you check, did anyone mention this? Or somebody mentioned this earlier. Did we go back and finish that out? And she will tell you, yes, that idea was completed, or no, it wasn't. We should talk about that a little more. So there's an opportunity to utilize the people around the table. One thing I always recommend is when you walk into a room like this and you're going to meet with a team, don't immediately just walk in, set your items down and say, let's get started. This is an opportune time for you to walk in, say hi to everyone, walk around the table, say hello individually, let them know that you recognize that they're there. And that also gives you an idea to think about, where are the people with certain characteristics sitting? Who can I rely on to do different things? You may even reach out to the detail-oriented person and say, would you mind taking notes today while we're meeting? But you start to set up that meeting for success. And you start to set up that team dynamic of, everybody in this room is important. I want to hear back from everybody. I want everyone to contribute. That's the key in getting a really productive meeting with really great ideas and people who are going to contribute something that may even be entirely outside of the box, but it is something that you want to hear, even if it's not something that you use. Create an atmosphere. And I use this picture on the left because this is something we're all dealing with right now. We did not truly expect that we were all going to be working from home as much as we have been. This is something that when I worked in higher ed, it was always a very difficult decision if we were going to shut down due to a snowstorm or there was a situation. It's always very, very hard to think about, how do you shut down an entire institution and still get everybody to be able to work from home. Corporations have the same issue. They want people in their offices, they want their phones answered, they want their mail opened. And all of a sudden, this past February and March, that decision was no longer ours to make. We recognized globally that we had a situation and we had to deal with it quickly and efficiently. So we sent everybody home. And what that means is, some people have a home office, and so it's not much of a change for them, other than they're not seeing their colleagues every day. But for other people, they've never worked from home. So suddenly, you know, they're setting up their desk in the dining room, or maybe they're sharing, you know, space in a bedroom, not really something that they're used to doing. So it's a little bit strange. And the other factor is everybody's home. So suddenly you have parents of small children who have kids around all day long, teenagers all day long. Even your cats and dogs are reacting because suddenly you're there all the time and they're not used to that. It disrupts their schedule. So you have to recognize that everyone's going to have a different atmosphere. So what you talk to them about is, how do you create an atmosphere for work? So when those sub teams come together, you say to them, you know, it's a good idea if you can be in a room with the door shut, try to do that. But if you can't, we understand. So you set the tone right at the beginning. We recognize this is not, you know, necessarily your choice of how to work, so we're going to work around it. You know, if you have the opportunity to issue equipment, you can check with people and say, you know, would it be helpful if you had a set of headphones for home? Is it possible that you might need a laptop to check out for a while? All of those kinds of things can be done if you have a budget or if you have a way to do that. But if you don't, people might be using their own equipment at home and they may not have everything. I heard recently of someone who did not have a laptop. They have an iPad, but it's an older one and they're struggling to use Zoom. It just is not working as well as it could be because of the age of the iPad. So that manager said, you know, it's more important that I hear your ideas and that you contribute than seeing you. So that person dials in on their phone and just calls in for every meeting. Now, everyone else doesn't get to see them. Because they have a good team relationship, the manager made a little cardboard cutout of that individual from their university photo. And so he sets it up on the desk next to him every time they have the call. That makes it kind of fun for the other people because they feel like they see that person. And when she's talking and giving back information, it feels like she's there. She took a picture of the screen and also sent it to her so she would have it and see how she's represented in the meeting every time. That's valuable for an individual to not feel like they're the only one that can't participate in the same way. This is particularly true if they are global. Maybe they're having bad connections. You want that person to still feel part of the team, still be able to contribute, and you want the team to recognize that person is still there. So creating an atmosphere, helping your team to do that, particularly during COVID, is really valuable and really helps them then focus on the things that they need to be doing. So remote is the new office setting. And for some people, they're going to be going back soon. And for other individuals, they're going to be home for 6 months or 12 months. I've heard. So you want to think about, you know, how is this impacting your team? What are the types of projects they work on? So I'll give you 2 examples from people I've talked with recently. One does a lot of research and they use a science lab. So obviously recreating science lab and issuing technology and equipment to people at home is really not a viable option. So what they have done is they have decided to flip how they do their project. They know the end result they need to do and they know the timeline that they need to get it in. So what they have done is while they're at home, they're doing research on the meat and the heart of the paper. They are looking into all the different areas that they need to. They are pulling all of their resources and they are getting all of the writing done ahead of time. And they are creating a list of all the things they need to do when they get access to the lab. So what it does is once they're told that at least one of them can go in, one person will go in and run the actual experiments and then document the results. But they've already started working on the remainder of the project and the report that will have to go in with it. So they've looked at it a different way. Normally they would have went in, they would have done all of their experiments first, then they would have done their research, then they would have compiled the paper. So they're still getting things done. They're still all having value in the project. They're just having to look at it a different way. So they're preparing for the shift, and they're recognizing what they're going to have to do differently in the short term and possibly in the long term. They're also looking at ways that they're trying to do things in terms of how they communicate and connect together. So they're doing Zoom calls once a week so they can see each other. And then other parts of the week, they may do a Slack channel. They may just do an email chain. They do all sorts of things just to try to get the feel for really having just casual conversation. And if you're using Slack, you can set up a variety of channels. You can have one that's just for casual conversation. People can share fun things there. You as a manager can say, hey, I'd love to see a picture of, your animal, and have people put pictures up of their dogs or cats, or maybe they have a bird, something, whatever they'd like to share with you. Some people will share what they're seeing right now out their window. So some people are in colder parts of the US, some of us are in the deep heat, but it's beautiful and it's sunny. And so you can have different ways to engage and keep that communication chain going, as well as when they're working on the actual research project. So I wanted to share this with you. A colleague of mine recently wrote a book that is available, and it's called 75 Plus Team Building Activities. And there's a couple ways that this book can be used. The best way, which is how I adopted it, is he gives you a quick list in there of here's all the activities of things that you can do. And so that's really important because you have that option to not have to read through the content and all, but to really get a quick activity, grab it, pull it out, and use it. So there's a nice way to sit there and start to look through what are some of the things that are available and how might I incorporate these. There's also really good information in there on working with remote teams, which ironically, when he set out to write this, was long before we had the pandemic happen. So it really came at a good time. But what you want to do is use this, again, to build relationships, to start to build and understand those characteristics and skills of your individuals, and to start to check on them and how they're doing being at home and being remote. So, studies are showing that some people are struggling. They're having issues with depression. They're feeling isolated and not being able to talk to individuals. They're really noticing that being at home regularly is having an impact on their emotional value every day. And so you need to check on team members when they're remote and when you're not getting to see them all the time, and just one-on-one ask them how they're doing. Is there something that you can do for them? Is there something that they'd like to see? In recent activities with a lot of the issues of race coming up right now, you may have employees who are really struggling with all of the situations that are going on with the protests and with the riots. I was talking to a corporate executive this morning who said many of the corporations that she works with are having difficulty determining how to message that out to their employees, that they do care and that they want to do things, but they also want to be sensitive. And it's very hard when people are at home because it's a one-way communication. You're sending an email out or you're sending a video out, but you don't get the luxury of people gathering in the hallways to talk about it, or having a quick town hall meeting to gather everyone so that they can come together and really talk through their concerns and their frustrations. It's very, very different for them. And that's something that I think everyone is struggling with right now. Regardless of the issue, it's very difficult when everyone is isolated, everyone is spread apart, and you're also not seeing other people. You do have team members who are single, who maybe don't have anyone else at home with them. There's a different level of isolation when you are in that situation. You're not getting that level of humanistic contact that all of us need. For others, we have it because we have a spouse at home, maybe we have pets, we have children that are home right now, maybe we have an elderly parent living with us. So we're still getting that humanistic quality. But for a single individual who's living alone without any of those contact points right now, it can really weigh heavy on them. And that can also affect their creativity when you're bringing them together and starting to look at what it is that you're doing as a team. So I really encourage you to look and do some of these team building activities. It's very important that you are clear with everyone that this is to have fun. You're not measuring or assessing how they're going to respond to things. You just want to take a little time to get to know everybody and let everyone get to know each other. What's really great is you could pick an activity a week and you could introduce something and do it at the start of every meeting. Many of these activities are 10 minutes or less. So if you said, okay, we're going to have an hour meeting. When we start, we're going to do an activity for 10 minutes, and then we'll get into talking about what the project is or what we're working on. Again, if you're teaching, you can even do this. You can get your students together and say, we're going to do a quick team building activity, and then we're going to get into this week's lesson, and we're going to start talking about how this is working. It's really valuable too if you can share with them not what everybody individually says, but what everybody says overall. So I'm going to share 2 activities with you here, and you'll see what I'm talking about in that you can get everybody's responses, but you can quickly just calculate it up and say how the team is feeling today. That's really helpful too, because people start to understand, okay, I'm not the only one. So the last thing I'll say about the book here before we get into the activities is one of the features of it is you can set up nudges. So there's directions inside. You can register for a newsletter, but what it will also do is it will nudge you. And there's a time period, I think it's every 2 weeks, that you'll get something that says, hey, have you tried a new activity? Or it's time to introduce something. This is a great way to not have to worry about doing something, but it also just starts to build it into your culture that we're going to do something fun. We're going to do something that really helps us get to know each other. We're going to get back to that productivity phase. So here's one of 2 activities. This is easy. It's a team pulse check. You take about 10 minutes because it takes everyone a little bit to write things down. But I do want you to think about this right now as you're sitting there and as you've been going through your day. So right now, if I asked you, what's your energy level from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest and 1 being the lowest? Many of you might say, oh, I'm at the lower end because I've been sitting here listening all day long. Wonderful conference, great workshops, but I just realized I'm a little drained from sitting and doing all of that. It's not my usual day. You know, some of you may say, you know, I'm trying to fit this conference in between work I need to get done. I wasn't really supported to just take the day off and do conference events. So, you know, my support at work, maybe a 7, maybe not a 10 today. Support at home. Maybe there's a lot going on in your house today. There's a lot of noise. You really want to concentrate on this, but there's things going on. So maybe support at home isn't so great today. Communication effectiveness. You're trying to get emails out that you're thinking you're going to take care of things and the week will be done and you can start fresh on Monday. Maybe you're getting back emails that are negative or that say, I don't understand what you're talking about. What is it that you want me to do? All of these things can reflect where you're feeling and how you're doing. Feeling valued. And again, you can say to your employees, how are you feeling valued at home? How are you feeling valued at work? How are you feeling valued in life today? It's a lot when you're hearing constant news about how things are going. You're hearing constantly about the pandemic. You're hearing constantly about all of the newsworthy issues that are going on across the globe. So maybe your value isn't feeling as high today. Maybe you're feeling a little under discovered or underutilized, or maybe just feeling like you're not giving as much as you could be as an individual, and that's okay. And inclusion, you know, are you feeling included in this team? Are you feeling included in your sub team? Are you feeling included in the company or in the institution? These are all important things, and there's many more in there that you can ask, but this is a way to let everybody just sit there for a couple minutes and write down their numbers and tell them, don't put a lot of thought into it. You know, you don't want to analyze. You just want to think about reactively, how am I feeling right now? And then as the leader, you should be truthful and share your numbers as well. It's very important that they understand that you're in the same boat as them. Sometimes people think that because you're always positive and you're a great leader and you're always getting a lot of work done, that nothing ever disturbs you, nothing ever bothers you. You're always in a great mood. Everything's wonderful. What they don't realize is that you've learned as a senior administrator to manage that. And so you want to say to them, I didn't sleep very well last night. I felt kind of weighed from all the things that are on the news. It's really a struggle in my house right now with everybody being home. And so maybe today, overall, I'm feeling like a 7. That's really valuable to them because they realize that 1, you react just like they do. 2, you're being honest and transparent with them, which makes them feel a part of the team, that you're inclusive. And 3, it also makes them understand that, okay, we're all in this together. And so we're going to try to move things forward. And again, you want to watch for low numbers, not to call them out during the meeting. Never do that. You don't want to isolate someone. You don't want to make it known that there's a problem. But if somebody, you notice is doing really low numbers on a couple of things, reach out to them individually. Maybe they're just having a hard day. Maybe there's a lot of other things going on. Life doesn't stop just because this pandemic has occurred. Many people are struggling with having relatives far away that they can't get to, that they can't be helpful with. Maybe their children are away and can't get home because there were travel situations. So, everyone has a bad day. Some people are having a bad week. Some people are having a really tough time. So you just want to reach out to them and let them know that you're available to chat. You just notice that, they were struggling a little bit today, and you just want them to know that you're there for them. And that's going to help too, because part of being an intricate part of that team is being ready for everyone else who maybe is in a higher level of energy, feeling better about how things are going, maybe enjoying what's going on. The second activity is the question of the day. And this one is really fun because you can do this really at any time of the meeting. You can do it at the end of the meeting if you wanted to try to close out on a really high note. So you can ask things as simple as, what's your favorite food? What was your favorite dish as a child? What gives you the most joy? What gives you the most joy regularly, and what gives you the most joy now? I asked this question the other day, and somebody said, what gives me the most joy is to travel. And obviously right now that can't be done. So what's giving me the most joy instead is catching up on all the different travel series that are on Netflix or that are on Discovery. And so I'm making a proactive list of where I want to go, what I want to do when we can get back to traveling again. So she's almost making a bucket list of all the travel places she wants to see based on kind of a preview that she's already seen in watching these shows. So she's made the best of the situation and she's still enjoying her joy. That's what's really important. You can ask them, what's your motto in life? It's always fun to hear what makes people get through every day, whether it's the greatest day they've ever had or the worst day they've ever had. This one is one that's really become prevalent lately, and is really kind of a comical one to ask is, what is your new daily routine? You'll hear people talk about the fact that, they're dressed up, but they're wearing sweatpants. Maybe they are doing things differently than they would normally when they leave the house. So somebody said the other day that, they get up in the morning and they work in their PJs for a couple of hours, and then they go and get ready for the day, and then they come back so that no one online sees that they're still in their PJs. But they've shifted their work schedule. And they're still getting their work done. They don't need to be on between certain times, so it works for them. Ask in terms of daily routine, are you eating differently? Are you staying healthy? What are some of the things that you binge on when you decide to have the munchies one day? You learn a lot about people that way, and people always feel better knowing they're not the only one. We all get in that mindset that we think, I'm the only person that does this. It's something that you don't see with everyone. And then you hear somebody else does it and you go, oh, okay, it's not such a big deal. So, you know, there's also an opportunity to create, everyone can create a chosen question for each meeting. So you can assign everybody a week and say, okay, you bring your question next week and we'll all answer it. And so you let different people take turns being the leader for that question and guiding how those answers come together. You can even build a fake team. So you can ask a question of, what's the favorite thing that you would do on a team? If we were playing baseball, what would be your favorite position? And you let everyone answer that. And then you put together very quickly what your new team would look like. How does that look different from what you're doing right now? So it really just gives you an opportunity to have another. Now, so we've talked about how you've invested your time to create a balance, ensure your dialogue, create your atmosphere, understand your team members and what their characteristics and skills are. Again, going back through that, looking at, you know, is everyone working on things to the best of their ability, meaning their skill set matches, that their interest is there, that you're really utilizing the skills that you hired them for, that you brought them in for? Are you ensuring that there's dialogue on the sub teams and on the full team and individually with you? Are you creating an atmosphere? So you're acknowledging that working from home is trying. You're acknowledging that going up and working in the office one person at a time is still difficult. You recognize that there's things that can and can't be done. You're looking at understanding how your team members are doing every day, working remotely, or even as they come back, but everyone's wandering around wearing a mask. Everyone's staying isolated. They can't gather around the water cooler or in the break room like they were used to doing. So you want to just really understand where everybody is throughout this entire process, and then make sure that you're helping them work through this time. So now, every Monday morning, you should have a team that responds to those same two questions that we started with. What deadlines are impending? Now you should have team members who are more proactive because they're valued. They've got a stake in the goal. They understand how to work on their sub-teams. They're recognizing the weekly patterns of what you're doing. They recognize that you're actively interested in them, and they're also interested in the projects because they're being utilized to the best of their capability. And the second question we talked about, how do I get my employees to share a sense of urgency? They're valued for their characteristics and skills, and they're hearing from you. They're hearing on their sub-teams. They're starting to understand what drives the company, what drives higher ed, what drives your classroom, what are the things that need to be done. And so by creating those better opportunities, you're having more powerful members who are going to be more proactive and are going to get those things done quicker. It's just really a valuable tool set to look at across the board, regardless of where you're working with teams. Bottom line, teams are teams, and you have people that come together from a lot of different skill sets who are needing to really work together well and produce a product or a service that is going to meet the needs of the end user. So with that, I will open it up for questions. Thank you.
Much, and we have time for questions, so we'll see if questions can come in through the chat. And while we're waiting for those, I have a question actually sort of related to atmosphere, I think, and team dynamics. What are your thoughts on how to best get a team in position for, essentially for the team as a whole to be able to get into a flow? Like, part of that is atmosphere, part of that is all these things. But what are your suggestions for how to sort of best, it's like capturing magic. You can't totally do it, but what can you do to set the tone so that that's as likely
Absolutely.
as possible?
One of the things that is always important is sharing your own experience on a team. Just a brief overview of what you love best about working on a team and what you struggle with. Letting them understand that you have those same concerns that they do. And then talking through, how are we going to put this team together? So you bring that team together and you start to talk through, If you're going to move into sub teams, here's why people are ending up on the team that they are. Here's what we're building for, and here's what we're going to do going forward. You always want to be transparent in why people are coming together and why you're valuing the skill set that's around the table.
Yeah, which I think probably leads to the next relevant issue, which is roles. Are there ways that you can kind of recognize that people may not be in the ideal roles, and then what would you recommend?
Oh,
in those
absolutely.
situations?
One of the things that I find is when you inherit a team, people that have been put into a role that really isn't fitting for them, either through attrition or just the fact that the projects have changed and the people have not. And so what you really have to do periodically is you have to take a step back and reassess what you have on your team and what people are doing. A good example of that is oftentimes you will find that people have been working on an advanced degree and you weren't even aware of it. So you're not even taking advantage of that, knowledge base that they've gained because they're going to night school or they're, doing it online. And so here you're thinking about hiring someone and you've already got that skill set sitting right at your table. So, I always recommend once a quarter is really helpful to just kind of look around the table and see what you have. Ask people to update you. What have they been doing? Have they been taking certifications? Have they been doing other classes? And really getting that opportunity to pull that together and then say, okay, based on this now, we're going to do a little shift in how people are working and what they're working on so that we can let you use that knowledge and that skill set and really advance yourself as well as advance us.
What if you have a situation where someone thinks they're in the right role for them, but you as the manager don't think they're in the right role for them?
And that does happen sometimes. I think the discussion then becomes, why do they think they're in the right role? What is it that they are doing and why are they doing it? So sometimes you'll ask somebody and they'll say, well, I've always done this. I've been responsible for this for years. Well, it's not that they're not getting their job done, but why do they do that? Is it something we still need done? Is it something that they're doing because they just were asked to? What's their enjoyment out of it? What's their interest in keeping that role? And I always ask them, if I could give you something different and replace that, would you be interested? That oftentimes is when they will come up and say, well, I'm not really married to doing this. It's what's always been assigned to me. Their fear is that if you take something away, they're going to lose their job. So you have to reassure them that there's something else there for them, and it might be an even better fit.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Along with that, I guess the next question sort of relates to confidence building, right? So, on one hand, I think you're probably looking to build the skills of the team, to have the teams continue to improve, and maybe even people might eventually leave a particular team and be elsewhere in the organization, of course, as time goes on. But then you also, your team will probably perform best if everybody's confident in their skill set and in their role. So how do you balance the need to sort of grow both a team and individually, and getting the most out of the team at a given time?
So one of the things that I think we don't do well in corporate America, and even in higher ed, is we offer you training and we offer you education at a time that's convenient to us. So in other words, as an employee at a higher education institution, you do get a tuition break to go to school, but we don't want you to go during the day. So you can't take certain classes. We want you to go at night or on the weekend, anytime that's not going to disrupt what we're doing. So we're telling you, on one hand, we want you to be more knowledgeable and we want you to have greater skills. But on the other hand, we're saying, but we don't want you to inconvenience us. So we have to start looking at that differently. We have to start looking at, when's the time to take a stop out and say, I'm going to pull this person from a project, allow them to go to a rapid training, allow them to do what they need to do, bring them back and put that skill set to use. I've seen this done at some corporations, and I've seen this done even at some smaller institutions. And it's amazing the productivity and the skill set that has been drawn from that. And what it does then is it allows others to start thinking about, maybe I should sharpen my toolkit. Maybe I should look at doing something more advanced. So we just need to get that priority reestablished. And I think remote working now has allowed us to do that, really unbeknownst to us, because people are able to take a little more advantage of it.
Yeah, I would think so. And there's a lot of opportunity out there. when you look at remote working, I guess getting back to sort of a different question, you talked a little bit about this, but how do you you mentioned that people are working remotely. There's a lot. It's a very different atmosphere, certainly. How do you continue to best build teams when they really don't see each other? And Zoom meetings, Zoom team meetings, Zoom happy hours are one thing, but as people have pointed out sort of throughout this conference, even as an online learning conference, it's not exactly the same. So what are some things that maybe you can do to bring out some of the same elements that you lose by not spending any time in person, especially when you're accustomed to being in person?
Sure. So, I always encourage people to have a phone call. Part of the difficulty when you're on a Zoom call is oftentimes, depending upon your connectivity, there's a delay. So we either talk over each other or there's these awkward gapes as the conversation goes on. That doesn't occur when you're on a phone call. So I will, recommend to people just have a phone call, just have a chat about things. Other things to do is just to share things with each other and to do meetings that have absolutely nothing to do with work. And not in the sense of, happy hours oftentimes are very one-dimensional. So you have one person running it and everybody else is there. Technology now has the capabilities to turn over leadership. Allow everybody in the room to run a little portion of it. Ask everybody to bring one thing to do. One of the activities in the book is to do a scavenger hunt. And so you can turn it over to each person at their home to go find something or to share something. It's really an opportunity for them to everyone is just like in a conversation going back and forth instead of just having that one-dimensional, really almost like a lecture feel of the leader who is the host and then everyone else who kind of sort of contributes. The last thing I would say is that, you need to ask them what they would like. Different groups react different ways because there are groups of people who are naturally more conducive to hanging out in the break room. And there are other people at work that, as you know, go from cubicle to eat lunch and right back to their cubicle. They're not people that go and hang out. So trying to force that issue because now everybody's online can be just as difficult for them. So you want to know your audience well enough and let them say to you what they'd like to do.
And Beth Barber notes that she says they've been doing Jackbox games occasionally on Fridays, and they've been having fun with those.
I think, games is a great way. I know a group that's doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. And so they get together, they pick what day they're going to do, and they do the full puzzle. But then once a week, they actually meet online and they talk about what are the ones they can't get. Who can get number 15? I couldn't get that one. You get into some interesting conversations that way because there's a history to maybe the answer or maybe, what happened then. The one I thought of is, I think it was a couple days ago in the puzzle, it was about Woodstock. So, if you have somebody in your group that remembers Woodstock or their parents went to Woodstock, suddenly the conversation goes off that way a little bit about, oh, here's what I heard or here's what I remember. And so it's really just kind of a fun way to do that. And everyone's learning, they're having fun doing the puzzle. They can't wait till Friday and share answers, or the one is just driving them crazy. They can't figure out how to do it. So there's a lot of different things like that you can do.
And I think you were talking a little bit before when you mentioned phone calls too. When you're getting back to the phone call idea, that's I think one-on-one. So part of the idea is to include one-on-one conversations and not have everything be the full group
Absolutely.
dynamic.
And remember, you've got people spread out. Even in the US, you've got 4 different time zones at one point. If you've got global employees, now you've got people staying up late at night to be on a call. So, flip that opportunity. Have everyone else stay up late and that person gets a normal, 10 a.m. call. Having one-on-one calls then can allow you to control that time zone issue a little more as well, so that you're not always fighting that and having, this difficult paradigm of trying to get everybody in when they need to be.
Right, you're only working around two time zones, not however many 8 or 10 or however many you have on your team.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And we have other comments from Beth. Just as mindfulness cards that she reads off in the morning meetings, depending on the day, and gives the team something to think about during the day.
That's a great idea. And it reminds me of one that I recently saw where they give a recipe for the week. And so on Friday, they have a catch up and they talk about, did anybody make the recipe? Did anybody try it? Or are you going to try it this weekend? Or, you know, if you would do something different with it, what would you do? Maybe, you know, one of your employees is vegan, so they would take a different approach to it. But again, it's just something that gets their mind off of everything. And it's common questions that we would talk about. You know, when you come into the office in the morning, if somebody says, oh, last night I made a great pan of lasagna, pretty soon the entire conversation is about the different ways to make lasagna and remembering your grandmother and all of these different dynamics that come in that really is hard to do on Zoom and to feel that. So, you know, maybe I see that you did that and I just pick up the phone or I arrange a time to call you and we just talk through it. And we talk about, well, what did you do and how did it work? And, you know, did you test it? And there's just all these different things that can come from that. Pets are the greatest subject matter in the world. You can ask people and immediately, you know, people may not have a current photo of themselves, but they can instantly put up a picture of their dog or their cat or their bird. We all have millions of pictures on our phones of these things. So, you know, you can be in the middle of a meeting and you can actually say, okay, we're going to break here. This is a good spot to break talking about the project. And real quick, first person that loads a picture of their animal, you know, gets a Starbucks card. And poof, yeah, I mean, you'd be shocked. I've seen this happen. How many pictures suddenly go up of animals, you know, and you pick the winner.
Oh, I don't even think you need a Starbucks card.
Yeah. And, you know, you get that. And then everyone starts talking about, oh my gosh, he's so cute. And what's he doing there? And, you know, all of these different things start to happen. It's really getting back to our lives and how we incorporate our lives into working. And even when we're in the office, we're still going to be a little estranged, you know, with social distancing and walking around in masks. So it's going to be that need to, even if you're just sitting at your desk, if suddenly, you know, a Slack channel pops up and says, hey, everybody post a picture of your pet, people are still going to do it. So it's a great opportunity to start to build those relationships.
Yeah, no, there's a lot you can do, and you know, there's a lot involved in team building, and really appreciate the time that you've spent with us. Anything else you want to leave us with? Which maybe just another minute or so. Any last thoughts, especially as the last presenter? Thank you for being the last normal presenter at the conference. Partly, mainly due to with your time zone.
I actually like being called a normal presenter. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that. I should use a different word. I don't know what to make of that. The last non-awards presentation session.
I can just say I've been in higher ed for many, many years. You know, and now I'm working in the private sector. And one thing remains the same: we all approach teams bringing in with the best intent and the worst follow-up. We bring everybody in, we don't recognize their skill set, you know, we don't always put the right people in charge because we are so used to a hierarchical organizational structure. And what we really need to do is take a step back and really make the most of the people that we have in the way that they come to us and the reason that we chose them, why we hired them. You start to really change how you look at putting your teams together. You're going to just be amazed at the work you get out of them, the productivity, but also just the ideas, the creativity, and really the problem-solving skills. It's worth a try.
Yep. Fantastic. It's a great note to end it on. Thank you so much for your time and your presentation. We hope to see you in New York next year.
Yes, I hope so too. Thank you everyone for attending.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, so we are moments away from the International E-Learning Awards announcements, which will be the closing session. We will be joined by a larger audience. This will also be broadcast live, rebroadcast on YouTube, so people who are not at the conference and may have submitted can see it. One last thing I want to do before we do that, our conference team has put together a brief post-conference survey. This will be emailed to you, but I'm going to put the link in the chat for those of you who want to get an early start. So there will be a post-conference email coming out, I'm told, sometime next week. So with that, it is 4:45 Eastern time. So we're going to shift over to the IELA Awards ceremony. You'll see an introduction to that, and we'll be joined by a larger audience. Conference, and welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time for our awards ceremony. I'm David Goralnik, chair of the ICELW Conference and president of the International E-Learning Association. And as our final session at ICLW, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to announce this year's award winners in the International E-Learning Awards Business Division. So we're going to show those in just one moment for you and take a look at what we're going to do. So this is the International E-Learning Awards. They are broken into the business and academic divisions. Awards are given for successful courses, sites, and products in e-learning, blended learning, and mobile learning. We have 3 categories. The academic and business awards each have their own category. Business winners will be announced today, and the academic winners will be announced in September at the ICL conference, which will be held this year online. So lots of divisions. We have academic and business, and we have within that 3 categories. So without further ado, we're going to announce the business division winners for this year, and we have, as I mentioned, e-learning, blended learning, mobile learning. We're going to start with e-learning, and we had a number of honorable mention winners, and we'll build up from there. So we'll pause for dramatic effect and reveal the first honorable mention winner. First honorable mention goes to Becton Dickinson. This is GPDS Online. This is the Global Product Delivery System, or GPDS. Becton Dickinson is a medical device company, and this system allows them to connect innovation to product delivery across their many businesses, regions, and functions. This is a product to serve a diverse group of professionals at Becton Dickinson. They join together in groups, and they focus on each stage of the new development process for new products. So this program has several unique features. It has a lot of short videos and chunks. It has one-click access to all content, bookmarking, and notes that allow the user to quickly return to any portion of the program without remembering where it was. A short trailer to generate interest in the program, guides legacy terms, and some links to other programs. So a lot of things, and deserving winner of an honorable mention award, the Becton Dickinson GPDS Online. Next honorable mention, also from Becton Dickinson. As I mentioned, they are a medical services company. The entry is an interactive case study. This is an online interactive case study that is an addendum to the BD Way of Marketing, which was an award winner here in 2017. This is an entirely new program, which is why it's eligible for a new award. It takes an interactive case study and turns that into an immersive documentary. So it lets the learner interact with actual people who took part in the project in a virtual way. It empowers users to see and hear from their colleagues and follow the Women's Health and Cancer team as they created their global marketing plan for 2018. So this is, again, designed for a wide variety of people at BD, different professionals, and it's an honorable mention award winner in the e-learning division. Next up is Time for You Communication and Learning from Germany, and this is Kim, a LearnBot on AI. This is a chatbot, which I refer to as a LearnBot. It's a digital tutor that teaches you about AI. It's for novices. It teaches via web chat. And so it offers short and concise learning sequences about the basic concepts of AI. So it's a sort of AI teaching about AI, gives applications of examples, history, and even a short quiz. So it's an enthusiastic, the idea is it's supposed to be an enthusiastic friend from next door, informing you about AI, but not a sophisticated expert. So it's a sort of informal discussion, and lets the user have some autonomy in how deeply they want to dive into the content. Kim regularly asks whether you want to switch back to a different topic or stay on the topic that you're on. So it's a short, entertaining intro to AI from Time for You in Germany. Next up, from Dell Technologies Education Services in the US, Maestro Application Training, another honorable mention award winner. Maestro is a Dell IT application that serves as an orchestration layer for services part movements across inventory sites globally. This is an application for an audience of planning, operations, and inventory control to manage and monitor all material movements required to support the flow of parts, to support the Dell warranty business. So Maestro is mostly targeted to help Dell Services parts organization manage this operation. About 200 users around the world who need to be fully trained in this Maestro application, and another 600 who need to be trained to use the application to view status and material movements. Honorable mention for the Maestro application training and for Dell. Next up, Merck Investigational Sponsored Studies e-learning from the US. And Merck had the need to design, develop 4 e-learning simulations to provide practice to EMD medical science liaisons who engage in discussions with clinicians about investigational sponsored studies. These provided practice in the appropriate behaviors, best practices, and also what not to say. So this covered 4 first-person point of view simulations, each of which with a number of decision points. They call it the incorrect answers with corrective feedback, and have a summary of key points after each simulation. So Merck Investigational Sponsored Studies e-learning, winner of an honorable mention award. Next up, another honorable mention for the PRI Academy. This is the Principles for Responsible Investment, which is an academy that trains financial services, corporate and other professionals to learn how to integrate responsible investment practices into their investment decision-making processes. Complicated, long set of courses, and this is aimed at central banks and asset owners and helping people understand how to best invest responsibly. And they are an honorable mention award winner from the UK. Another honorable mention award winner. This one is Mindset Digital for Nationwide. Protect the network, live the 5. And there's a title for you. Protect the network, live the 5 is an innovative gamified training initiative deployed by Mindset Digital for Nationwide, which is a Fortune 100 financial services company here in the US. The training and the campaign were designed to get associates to adopt 5 key behaviors to mitigate cyber risks. This is a cyber risk training program. In order to earn attention and get people paying attention who had been watching Game of Thrones in particular, the program was centered around medieval type characters who were misplaced in modern day corporate America. And really, who could be more misplaced in modern day corporate America than medieval characters? These characters provided the hook to help people navigate through 5 different kingdoms. Nationwide associates enjoyed the program. They had been taking cybersecurity training for 10 plus years, but this was a fresh and new way to do it, and earned an honorable mention award from us here at the IELA. Next up is from We Know Training and Workforce Development in Canada, sexual and gender diversity training. This product recognizes that SGD youth, sexual and gender diversity, have frequently been silenced, and brings their voices forward with quotations from and short video interviews with real youth who have experience with child intervention. In this course, then, immersive animated scenarios allow learners to choose responses and see the outcomes of their own choices. The client characters speak directly to the learner, providing feedback in their own words. This helps learners apply abstract concepts to the situations that may encounter while also fostering empathy. At key points in the product, learners are asked reflective questions that build on their past experience and their learning so far. This is very difficult and emotional content, and that's what the course is about. The overall tone, however, is that of hope and resilience. The course is designed to build competency and confidence so that all staff, primary audience is staff, feel empowered to make a difference in the lives of their clients. This is a mandatory course for front-facing children's services staff in Canada that serve children, youth, and families, particularly in Alberta. And it also satisfies with continuing education requirements for the Alberta College of Social Workers. So this is a course that earned an honorable mention award again from the IELA. Another honorable mention award from Microsoft, Standards of Business Conduct Season 3. This is from the US. It's a story-driven 45-minute online training program that reinforces proper conduct for those working at Microsoft. The course was developed to show employees how to approach ethical challenges with integrity, which is essential to achieving Microsoft's mission of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Season 3 is the series finale. The Standards of Business Conduct picks up from earlier seasons as the characters practice integrity skills while continuing their ethical journeys. So again, it teaches employees how to approach ethical challenges with integrity, and we're pleased to provide it with an honorable mention award that it has earned at the International E-Learning Awards. All right, a moment of dramatic pause because we're through the honorable mentions on to the silver medal, the runner-up, and that one is Video Arts Conversations from the UK. Video Arts is a UK content specialist, learning content specialist. They've been around for a number of years and won a number of awards from us over those years. They created a series of 4 courses featuring 18 interactive learning videos designed specifically for delivery from a gamified learning experience platform. Learners navigate through a series of video activities which are interactive. These include on-screen hotspots with additional content information, quizzes to check comprehension, a knowledge check at the end, and the videos, I think, are probably the key to the course and the interactive videos. The main audience for the series are managers at any level who have performance-related conversations with employees. So what you're learning in these videos are how to have skillful skillful conversations with your employees about their performance. When those conversations are handled well, results are positive. When handled poorly, the results are negative. So the focus of the conversation and the focus of the series is how managers can use frequent informal reviews to enhance their team's performance. Okay, and that's from Video Arts in the UK, the runner-up in our e-learning category. And the winner in our e-learning category is Envision Performance Solutions with Sullivan Tire. The course is Driving the Courtesy Van with Care from the US. Sullivan Tire's courtesy van drivers who transport customers and their ambassadors for the organization, and they're expected to deliver a high level of service. They need to know the required qualifications and regulations of the role and must ensure the safety of their passengers. This course uses scenario-based learning to help the drivers learn how to react according to best practices to manage challenging customer situations. They must achieve a 4 or 5 Shamrock score. They are scored on Shamrocks after completing all scenarios in order to receive credit. So it's a learn by doing scenario-based approach, which is one of the reasons I think that it won the Gold Award. CARE stands for Customer Focus, Ambassador for Sullivan Tire, Responsibility and Empathy. So that's the CARE, the C-A-R-E. This is training that could not be conducted on site. It was necessary to do it online to meet the needs of their audience. The audience is primarily Sullivan Tire's courtesy van drivers. They do note that any qualified licensed Sullivan Tire employee might transport a customer, so the training does get assigned to all current and future retail employees just in case they do have a need for it. This includes technicians, sales staff, and managers, so it's a large audience. Sullivan Tire has a wide footprint, 73 retail stores in 4 New England states, and their goals were to reduce the number of hours that employees spent traveling to training and to ensure that employees could get this training in their first week on the job. They've had 665 employees complete the course to this point and save themselves over 1,000 hours and counting. 93% of new hires have completed the course, and we want to congratulate Envision Performance Solutions and Sullivan Tire for the Gold Award in the e-learning category. Usually a pause for applause. It's hard to hear applause online. We're going to move to the next. The next category is mobile learning, and we have an honorable mention award winner there from Atma Insights, Atma Global Knowledge Media Incorporated. Product is Atma Insights, which is a new digital learning channel, providing learners with personalized self-directed learning. These are content-rich videos that cover essential country, culture, and global business topics. So it's a digital learning streaming service that provides information about culture and travel and helps you understand how culture impacts international business and specific global operations. So congratulations to Atma Insights and Atma Global Knowledge Media on their honorable mention. Next up, the runner-up in mobile learning. Richmond International SA and Saffron Interactive from the UK. Richmond, the right choice. The audience for this training is employees across the Richmond group. All of their employees do take this training. There are 3 locations that people work from, and they all take this training. This is part of the ongoing Be Aware, Be Secure communication program, and it's a mobile-first module on security to build consistent knowledge, engagement, and ambassadorship across all of Richmond's locations. This is a 10-minute interactive card game that's mobile-first and is scenario-based. So they have quick-fire, gamified decisions, but it's scenario-based. It's not just facts. It's intended to cultivate a mindset of I am responsible for security, and I can learn and share. So it's fun, it's innovative, and it draws out the desired behaviors. They are given realistic scenarios and cards to play with choices to make about how to handle the decision and behaviors that they might be able to make. Saffron used continuous assessment to measure their ability to make the right decisions. Congratulations to Richmond International and Saffron Interactive on the runner-up award for mobile learning and the mobile learning category here at the IELA. And now, the Gold Learning Award in mobile category goes to Babbel, Language Learning Podcast. Babbel is a well-known language learning provider, and one of their products is 5 learning podcasts for learners of English, Spanish, Italian, and French. These podcasts address learners of different proficiency levels, from beginners to advanced. The learning media team at Babbel realized there were few podcasts for language learners that effectively combine storytelling with vocabulary explanations, and they went out and built their own, which is a great way to handle the awareness that there is something missing in the marketplace and something valuable. So they generated this. It's something where they want you to learn language in real life situations, not computer generated translations, but learn it in real life situations by taking these podcast lessons that are based on stories as well as vocabulary. They say that you cement vocabulary in your memory even faster, and you get to practice them in your day-to-day life. These are podcasts built around cultural and linguistic knowledge, and they're going to continue to roll out new podcasts as time goes on in the future. Congratulations to Babbel for winning the Mobile Learning Gold Award at the International eLearning Awards. One category left, which is blended learning. And we have an honorable mention from the Faculty of Skills, who created blended learning for Aon. This is a blended learning program for Aon insurance advisors. These employees were already experts at providing customer service on the phone, but often missed out on sales opportunities. The goal of this program was to help them get on board with the importance of the change to focus a little bit more on sales and adopt some new behaviors. The program has been a success in terms of sales results and also participation. It's a blended approach, both online and live and in person. They are on parallel learning paths where they deal with topics at the best possible moment. It's a product that has a number of different elements, and we congratulate them on winning the honorable mention in the blended learning category. Another runner-up in the blended learning category from Dell Education Services in the US. The Dell Education Services topic-based learning example. This is for Dell Technologies data storage courseware. This uses a topic-based development approach. It gives a learner a foundation in storage administration, and that's the goal of this one. The audience for this product is customers and clients who have purchased Dell data storage products, Dell Technology employees as well, who provide post-sale support, as well as Dell service desk agents and new hire employees working on shared product features. So there's a wide variety of audiences for this, and we congratulate Dell on the runner-up award in the blended learning category. Okay, so I misspoke earlier. This is the runner-up award in the blended learning category. So congratulations to Dell for what's the silver medal, the runner-up award. That leaves us with one more, which is the gold award. And the gold award goes to Royal Life Saving Society Australia and Savvy for the Pool Lifeguard Suite. And this is a blended product targeted at people who wish to accomplish and be certified for an entry-level lifeguard qualification through RLS, which is Royal Life Saving in Australia. They are Australia's leading water safety educator with over 1 million yearly participants in their RLS program. They offer the Pool Lifeguard Certificate, which was traditionally offered as a face-to-face training through manuals. While this is a reliable approach, they found that they wanted to offer a more engaging and memorable pre-course delivery method, which allowed greater time spent on the role's practical elements, such as aquatic rescue and CPR during face-to-face training. So they used the blended approach to maximize the time they had on critical and life-saving critical issues that you could really only learn in person. This was a product that covers a range of topics. It's about, say, 7 by 15 minute module suite. So between an hour and a half, 2 hours total, covering principal components using a gamification framework with videos and media. Many of the activities require rapid decisions because this is a job that requires rapid decision making. You need to act quickly. And so that was also built in to the online part as a scenario-based approach. And then, as I mentioned earlier, in the in-person segments, they focused on key practical elements such as aquatic rescue and CPR that are absolutely necessary during face-to-face training. So I want to congratulate Royal Life Saving Society Australia and Savvy for their Gold Award in Blended Learning. And that is our last award winner. And we want to congratulate all our award winners once again. Along with that, a couple more things to say before we wrap up here today. The award schedule is posted on the IELA site, as you can see below. Submissions for the IELA Business Division Awards for 2021 will open in December of this year. The Academic Division Awards are now being reviewed. Actually, they're still being accepted till the 15th of June, and then they will be reviewed. The award winners will be announced in September 2020 at the ICELW conference, which will be held online this year. So if you want to get an academic award submission in, we did extend the deadline until June 15th, so there's still time to do so by Monday at the IELA site. Thanks to everyone for the IELA Awards and for the ICLW conference. We've had 3 great days of presentations. Our conference team put together a tremendous event in a short amount of time as we switched from being in person to online. And I want to thank everyone for everything they did there, and all of our presenters and our keynotes, Ryan and Antonella, and so many people that I could go on and on as an Oscar presentation and list all the people, and I still wouldn't list everyone. So it's been 3 days of great discussions online and a lot of really, really interesting presentations and innovative work in the world of online learning, particularly relevant to workplace learning. That's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, both for the full ICLW conference and for this award session. Looking forward to seeing many of you in New York next year at ICLW in person in 2021, June 16th to 18th. Thanks once again. I'm David Goralnik, the ICLW conference chair. Thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time.